And more that I'm learning, particularly from Mark Felton of Germans fighting Germans right near the end. The classic example is Castle
we need to do a scenario of Castle.
We do.
Yeah.
So
What's am I missing?
Look, all I'm going to say is Germans, SS, French tennis players, a Sherman, and ammo.
and it's a castle.
Oh yeah, how could I forget the castle?
Welcome to the Historical Miniature Gamers podcast. My name is Jacob.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Gorcin.
And I am Daniel.
And it's been quite a while since we've all been here together to do this cast. It's been way too long. Everybody's been doing their own thing in the hobby world, but we're coming back and getting this bolt action stuff underway. But I thought might as well just do an update of what we've been up to in and outside of bolt action and hobby stuff as well. So you three guys were at a convention that I didn't actually be able to get to. So you want to tell me about that?
Well, where do we start? So we went to WASMEx.
Wrong place to start. The right place to start with that one, Dan, is if you want to see the event, go check out our YouTube channel.
Hey,
Yes.
we've got like 6 videos up at the moment about it.
It's closer to 15.
Yes.
Awesome.
But that's how you edit stuff, Tyler. You just get it done.
Oh!
So I haven't been, but I've watched all the videos, so I feel like there have been. So it's really cool.
Almost as good as Brian.
No, it's
WA
not.
Model Expo.
West
Scale
Australian
model.
Scale Modelling Expo.
Scale Modeling
Yes.
Expo.
Yeah.
And you happen to meet a lot of people that you haven't seen before that
Yeah.
are in the scale modeling stuff and not necessarily the wargaming stuff. But we have the overlap. We know that we're kind of doing the same kind of thing. So there's things that you can learn from those kind of people. So tell us about it, Gorcin.
It was interesting seeing everybody's perceptions of both scale modeling and wargaming. It was interesting kind of seeing a few people had sort of the notion that scale modeling was the pure art form, and we had other people who didn't realize that wargaming actually was even a thing. They just thought it was something that came and went. And some people that we talked to, it's like, I used to play Advanced Squad Leader in the 70s or 80s. I didn't realize it was like a three-dimensional thing now. And we had lots of people in between. People who were wargamers came to check out the scale modeling stuff as well. So there were about I want to say about a dozen scale modeling groups in Perth that we had a chat to, which was a lot more than I expected.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And there was a lot of niche groups. Again, it's not something that really surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, we had everything from, so we had Maylands Meccano Club, we had a sci-fi club, we had the Task Force 72, which is actually a national club, and the WA chapter was over here.
Yep.
That's like all remote controlled, scratch built, 1/72 scale battleships and stuff. Like, it was massive.
That was amazing.
But we also had Perth District Model Club. I'm going to forget some
They were
names.
pretty car
unfortunately.
focused, those guys.
Yeah.
But They did military vehicles as well. And I think that was one of the things that surprised me, is that we didn't just have so many clubs, but all the clubs had focus.
Yes.
The Western Front models were very World War I oriented. They've all branched out into lots of different stuff as well. And so the PDMC guys, Perth District Model Club, also have they have their own expo, which I've completely forgotten the name of now, but it's coming up June 18th.
Right.
And it's going to be a lot of like model car stuff, and I know from the scale modeling that I come from, I generally tend to prefer like weathered, lived-in looking military vehicles, and the PDMC, the car scene seems to be more skewed
Factory
towards factory clean, and seeing just the level of polish and perfection that these guys achieve on the vehicles is very impressive.
Very cool. And you met some friendly faces there too. Obviously, some of the Womp guys were there.
Restless Miniature Painters was there. Running a speed
painting.
Yep.
Speed painting.
Yeah. That looked
What a
cool.
time.
Again, check the video.
Soon, TM.
Yeah.
It'll be out before this is out.
Yeah, probably. And it was all a British bolt action mini. Was it all the kind of same pose, same guy? Did you get to choose who you wanted?
You got a choice. So I chose someone that would was a guy with a pistol. Easily could have been an NCO for a squad. But they built up vast array, a lot of interest things, bit of character. But you could basically go there, pay the entry fee to get the paint on.
$5.
So $5. Like,
Did you keep the mini after?
You actually did get the option to keep the mini afterwards.
Okay.
I think all three of us actually chose, we let them, the minis that we did, we were like, use those as examples.
Yeah,
for
The
people.
last thing I need is more bolt action minis.
Yeah. The last thing I want is to see that failure of a smile that I
Mate, there was nothing wrong with Bucktooth, he was fine.
You flew too close to the sun.
got way too cocky.
What do you guys think about painting a model within 45 minutes?
Look, it was actually really, really surprising because that's, for me, that's sort of where I came from, right? It's this idea that I don't give a shit about this guy because I've got another 30 or 40 or 50 I need to paint when I get to the end of it. Especially coming from, when I first started playing 40k, I was collecting Chaos Space Marines and I basically just played them as mechanized infantry in Power Armor. I think in 4th edition, they were more versatile than your actual bread and butter Space Marines.
Yeah.
And so I used them in that way. And then
Is that to do with like the marks and stuff like that?
well, it was the equipment, the options.
Yeah,
You could use the same squad was more effective in assault and in shooting than a standard Marine squad, but you didn't have some of the special rules. Anyways, after that, and then going to Astra Militarum or Imperial Guard, again, just lots of bodies, lots of dudes that you need to paint. And then from there to bolt action, same thing. So when I sat down, I was like, you already paint how many in 45 minutes? I was like, just one?
Yeah.
and it was still a challenge. It was still good fun.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about finishing him to a tabletop standard. It was like how well you can do in 45 minutes. But I remember talking to the Westless miniature painting guys. I know having a chat to them on the day and outside, they're the opposite. It's like, how perfect can I get the smallest detail in 45 minutes?
Right.
But the intent is different, right?
Yeah.
They're going for really high quality, wowing display miniatures, whereas I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
They perform better on tabletop when they're painted.
Yeah, after that initial game.
Of course. You got to get the starch out of your uniform.
Absolutely.
I get it.
Yeah.
The pattern is death and then performance. That's how it works.
So if it's going to give me an edge, I'll do it. And so that's where I came from. It was good fun. It was a nice challenge, actually.
The interesting thing about the WAMP guys is that attention to detail, but the mutual respect that I've seen, I've been on their Discord for a while. I think I've seen the same sword 5 times over a couple of weeks. They're just working on this one little detail. But then I've had a chat with a couple of them. I'm like, I've got a partisan army that I've got to put together. I've got 80 guys, and they're like, they go epileptic, and so they're sitting there like, wow, that's amazing. I'm like, no, what you're doing? I'm both sitting there just patting each other on the back.
Very, very supportive.
Yeah.
It's quite. I mean, all the WOM guys are absolutely fantastic, and the idea, in terms of back to what the root question was around the speed painting and how I went, the idea that I could paint anything in 45 minutes was nerdvana. That was like some unachievable. I'm like, there's no way knowing that I'm getting that done. Now this was made a little bit more challenging and interesting for me because I was the first one of us three to go up and do the speed paint. Which was a way of sitting me down and getting me to stop running off and looking at things to buy.
How much did you spend again?
Oh, we're going to go in that later.
We're not trying to get Dan murdered.
No, that's true.
All I'm going to say is it's all been cleared. It's all been cleared with the wife, and things have been done. But
selling all.
If only it was just the 40. But essentially, I sat down at the miniatures table, and I knew it was a challenge, and I happily paid the $5, which I think was a brilliant entry piece. And Tyler's already laughing because he remembers
this now.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I've got to paint this up. I've got a base to do. I've got these. I'm like, and they're like, you can get all your colours set that you want. You can do all that sort of pre-work, but you're not allowed to open and start getting paint on brush until we say go. I was like, all right, well, give me 30 seconds to quickly look at some of the paints and stuff here. And we'll go through. And so I picked out roughly a colour scheme of what I thought I was going to do, and I was like, this will look about right, and it'll look semi-historically accurate, so that'll be okay, but a bit of spot colour in. And they zenithal primed all the models, right? So you can
really
get,
cool.
well, it speeds up your highlighting and your staging processes and your shading, and so I was like, nowhere to put it all. nice and thin colours. Well, I'll get into this in a little second. And then when we say
no contrast,
I picked it, no contrast paints.
Contrast.
It was
Yep.
all
I think it
contrast
was
paint.
mostly Vallejo range, some Citadel stuff, and some washes, but no contrast.
No, they did have contrast.
Did they?
It was on the other side of the desk.
Yeah, they had
Okay.
a couple, like Templar black and just like basic colours.
Oh,
Nothing too
okay.
fancy.
Yeah. So just to sort of put it into context.
But I was comfortable using Vlay because I use Vlayers at home, and so
Yeah.
I was and model color range from them, so that was all fine. Pick up the brush and they go, right, and your time starts now. Yanked open shook up the first paint, yanked it down, dropped it around, starting with the uniform, was feeling really, really good.
Yeah.
Dipped the paintbrush in the paint to get started. It's a fine detail paintbrush.
It's like this small.
It was tiny.
What was it, like a 00?
Is
It was about a 00, right? It's the sort of thing that
Did you only have one brush? Is that what
Well,
happened?
so here's the thing. I was like, okay, this is obviously just part of the challenge.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
being the absolute trooper that I am, I just lost the camera. Being the absolute trooper that I am, I jumped in and I just went straight in. I was just like, I'm just going to use this brush. I'm going to go as quickly as I can. And so I thinned out my paint so I was maximizing coverage because I didn't want to do that many passes, but I wanted to make sure I had things ready to go. And I was moving my way through the different colours, and then I got to the base with a fine detail brush.
Well done.
And I looked at it and I said, how much time have I got? And they were like, oh, you've got about, I think at that point I was down to sort of 2 or 3 minutes left. And I'm looking at my brush and I'm going, I'm doing the calculations in my head. I'm looking at how the paint wasn't a problem. I had as much paint as I wanted. But how much paint could I pick up on that brush? And how quickly can I spread it around on the base and have it not look janky? And I think it was either Will or Dan from WAMP. They came over to check on how I was going. And they saw me using this paintbrush frantically trying to get paint onto the base. And they go, what are you doing? And it turns out there's a stack of 5 brushes that I could have just grabbed one from like a foot away, but I didn't realize because I thought it was part of the challenge. And I went, I can use those. You can use those. I think I threw one down, and I yanked over and grabbed the biggest one that I could, and that base was done in about 10 seconds flat. And then I re-picked up my small one. Again, not assessing any other brush choices I had, and went back to layering with the small fine detail brush. But I got it done. I actually got it done with time to spare. But I that was significantly more of a challenge for myself than what the other two did.
I think the only way that I can describe my approach is it's just the way that I work. I was like, okay, at which point does the timer actually start, and what can I do before it? And it was, they said you can get all your paints, you can get all your brushes. You can get all your paints in your palettes, you can get the whole thing set up. And I literally just sat there for about 10 minutes and I was like, I'm going to use this brush and this brush, and I'm going to get these paints, and I'm going to use this one to highlight that paint and this one to highlight that paint. I had 12 different paints laid out, and I was like, all right, I'm ready, you can start the timer now. And I was like, it wasn't, I wouldn't necessarily say it was easy, but I had the sense in my head that I was like, okay, I know these are the steps that I'm going to take, and I'm just going to get through them. And then I had sort of mentally mapped out which steps I was going to drop as I ran out of time. But everything went about right. I thought I'd be really clever and I'd do all my washes at once. And then, of course, if you've only got 45 minutes, what are you going to do while all of your washes dry? So I started doing that, and I was like, oh, that's not going to work. And so I had to change my plan.
Did you see people just not touch washes at all?
Yeah. I think it was. I know the couple of the more experienced guys. Actually, just did the manual shading, both up and down. So they actually started with a darker tone and moved up. I'm not sure. Did you do any washes, Tyler?
Yeah. I mean, I can talk about my experience. I essentially channeled my inner Jacob. So I recently moved in with my partner. I got some of her old makeup brushes that she was about to throw out. And so I bought one with me on the day. And I was like, hell yeah, this is going to be sick. I'm just going to smash it out. And I did. So I did the same thing as you. They were like, take as much time as you need. I'm like, I'm gonna do that. So I sat down and I was like, yeah, this is nice, get all my paints ready. I was like, I can't
I'll bring my own brush and cheat a little bit.
I talked to them, I was like, hey, guys. And they were like, do whatever, like, you want to do whatever you want to do. But yeah, so I sat down and I had like all my colors laid out and everything. This massive makeup brush. I was like, what would Jacob do? WWJD.
I mean, I was thinking the whole time when you guys like saying 45 minutes, I'm like, oh my god, you could do like 10 dudes in this.
I was like, how much can I dry brush?
Okay, so the next thing that's coming to our merch store is a little set of makeup brushes that are just branded "What would Jacob do?"
Yeah. You get like stippling, dry brush, and then
There's a sponge in there.
Yeah.
And we'll also have a precision brush saying, "What would Daniel do?"
Yeah, it'll be the HMG brush section.
Yeah.
There'll be one big makeup brush.
Now, the fine detail is called the Daniel.
That's it though. You only get the two brushes, Jacob and Daniel.
Massive makeup brush, tiny binding. It's all you need.
Single hair paintbrushing.
The thing is though, that really set me up for failure in some regards, because I sat there and was like, oh yeah, slapped on the first colour like that. It was done in like 30 seconds. I literally had to blow. I was going so fast, my dry brush was still drying by the time I finished. So I had to blow it until it dried. Did another paint, did another coat, started doing freaking details and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of use the biggest brush you can get away with. So I was just loading this thing up in like, there's like 5 or 6
Normally
different...
I am too, for those that pay up.
I was like, there's 5 or 6 different ones, so I'm just gonna get as much paint onto this brush as I can, and just like in the body of the brush.
Yeah,
not,
the belly.
I'm not a fucking animal. But,
What are you saying?
So I did that. Got it all done. I must have had like 15 minutes to spare. And so I'm sitting there. I'd done all my detailing. I wasn't even going to try do any highlights because I'm not that keen on it. So I did my wash, and I was sitting there. I'm like, what can I do? Like, what
The hubris
details?
of Tyler.
Oh yeah. So I was there. I did a wash, just like a null wash over everything, and then I was like, let's get another wash. So I did another wash on the gun. Then I was like, on the face, what should I do? I sat there for like 5 minutes, just wasting time, looking at which shade of flesh
just
shade
sitting
I
there
wanted
for
to do.
5 minutes deciding what you want to do.
So I got the wrinkle flesh shade in the end, gave it on the face. I'm like, yeah, this is looking really good. And then I was looking at the mouth. And oh, how the mighty fall. I was sitting there, I was looking at his face, and like, there's no way. There's no way I can do the eyes. Like, I'm just not good enough to do eyes.
I did eyes. Did you do eyes watching?
Yep.
High five.
I was like, I'm glad you did the eyes. At least you had the right brush for that.
How did you have time?
And so I was looking at his
Jacob's
mouth.
like, why did you bother?
I would have painted a couple of these.
You're like, I'm doing 5 entries. They're like, so you want 5 spread over? No, all at the same time. So I was looking at this mouth, and the guy had like a wide open, like, get some kind of face.
Yeah.
And I was like,
War face?
the war face, exactly. I was like, I'm trying to paint those teeth. So I like get the paint out, and I'm taking my time. I've done a matte wash on this, like a matte varnish coat on this, because I was so comfortable, right? And so
I'm starting to understand where it went wrong.
I mean, let me credit where credit's due. I think I put a gloss wash on the helmet, or a gloss coat on the helmet.
Yeah,
so
right.
because it was the same color as the uniform, I needed to give it different texture. But
yeah.
And I did wet blend a spot on the helmet, but that was in like the last 45 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I thought, I thought I had a bit more time. Then one of the guys comes over, who's timing me, and he's like, so you got about 10 seconds. I had the brush, I was like, my hand just starts shaking. Then he's like, it's good natured, but he was like 10. 9. And so it got to like 3, and I was like, sniper, breathe in, breathe out. And then he said 1, and I was like,
And I completely fluffed the model for myself.
There's a reason that I referred to him as Bucktooth.
Do we have,
The model, not Tyler.
Oh yeah.
do we have photos of these?
Yeah,
games?
they'll be
Yeah,
up,
okay,
they'll be
alright, we'll have to throw them in. Tell us more about WASMEx. We did the 45-minute painting competition, and then you actually entered a real painting competition.
Yeah,
so did Dan.
So did Dan.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so I put in something specifically without the intent of winning. It was more just to support WASMEx and to put something in. I might put something through a bit next time. So one of the big things that obviously WASMEx has revolved around as well is the scale modelling competition.
Yep.
Yeah.
They had, I think it was, they said 31 categories.
Something like that.
Like it's
So
a
this was
crazy
called
amount.
Fire and remove?
No,
That's something else.
No.
Alright.
This was simply.
Come on.
So there's a huge amount of categories, and it covers all sorts of stuff: scratch built things, sci-fi stuff, models, busts, dioramas.
There was a miscellaneous category, just in case you didn't fit any one of the
Which
others.
was great, because then we got these cakes made out of sprues.
Yeah, don't ruin it.
My favourite version of that was actually the murder cake.
The
Murder teddy bear cake
Yeah.
with sprues.
If you don't know what we're talking about, in one of our recaps that we did of what gets the Western Tabletop crew excited at WASMEx, we do a screenshot of what those cakes look like. And honestly, you know, the creative license that and the thought process that goes into that was far and above anything that I've ever considered doing with my sprues. So worth having a check.
So the important thing about the West Australian Scale Modelling Expo, as far as I understand it, it's kind of like the best in the best. The categories are open for anybody to compete. There's not like a qualifier element before that, but this is the annual event for the guys who do the scale modelling.
It's for the big boys.
The other thing about the Scale Modelling Expo that I think is really important to mention, just in case people haven't checked out the interviews or you guys are tuning in just for the bolt action stuff and just for some context, is that anyone who enters in the junior category, so I think that's 18 or younger, it doesn't matter what you do. If you enter, you get a kit given to you,
Right.
and it's to grow the hobby. Yes. And of course, that's a pretty hefty investment for the WASMEC committee to do, but I think it's a really important one because ultimately they could choose to spend their money on a lot of different things, but ultimately the one thing that they're deciding on is making sure that the people who compete come back. And that's really important.
I think I've seen a photo of the committee member at Hobby Tech or something holding a receipt that's longer than he is, or something like that.
Absolutely.
And those are the kits that they give away to the under 18s.
Yeah. And so the categories, each category's got gold, silver, bronze. I think there was a panel of judges.
Yep.
I don't know what the actual number was. I think it was somewhere between 8 and 10. I heard, but it was a chief judge and there was a lot of, there was a lot of people involved and there was like a judging coaching thing that they went through. I know the chief judge, Sam, I want to say, put out a call for a couple of different judges and he
Sam Harvey, I think it was.
Sam Harvey, yeah. And I think they did a fantastic job on the day. To think that they had about 250 entries.
Wow.
At least it was probably more, but for some reason
I think they got to. I want to say 260, but we'd have to check.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was massive.
And to get them.
Do you think these are individual people, or
no? So
some people might enter 3 or 4.
Yeah, I know. One of the guys entered probably about 15, 20 different ones.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it's safe to say that it would have been at least 100 people. I think would be 100 people would be a good bet. Yeah. And yeah, it was just really interesting to see them go through that. The part that I really want to emphasize they did well was how efficient the judging was. Yes. So it was Saturday 10 to 2 was your submission entry time. All of the models were judged by Sunday morning.
Yeah. Okay.
And to do that is absolutely phenomenal.
For the amount of models that they had, for the quality that they were having to judge,
and for the jostling
range, for the jostling and quality, for the range of topics and genres that they had to cover, it really is testament to how well that they've set that judging panel up, how well they've set up the scoring criteria, how well they've taken on with the experience, and just how well run they've actually got that modelling competition down pat. When I got the note to say, hey, by the way, you know, the models have all been judged now. You know, you'll get an update as to whether your piece has been validated or not. You can go check it out. And that was like late Saturday afternoon was when I first got the note to say, hey, just be aware that, you know, everyone can go in and have a look again. I'm going, wait, that was like, you know, yes, it might have been a couple of hours, but it was a couple of hours across, like a good couple of hundred.
How many judges are we talking?
About 10, I think.
About, somewhere, it's probably
And that's
10 or less
including
people.
like novice judges who are being coached.
Yes.
Yes. So it was, I think, and that's really important. A lot of people think that the judges should just be experts, but I think your judging panel should be a nice, wide group of people who are engaged in the hobby
experience as well. Like it's you know, I actually considered volunteering as a judge, or sorry, an assistant judge or whatever for this year. It didn't quite work out this year for me, so I chose not to. But you know, possibly next year it might actually be something that I, you know, drop a note to Sam and go, hey, I'm interested, because you know, it's not because my opinion's necessarily worth anyone else's more. It's obviously not that, but I really like scale modelling, and I really like appreciating the techniques and you know and all that sort of stuff. And I know, you know, I can sort of see the differences at the moment of what's for example simply contrast versus laid up and blended versus you know the next level above that, and you know fine highlighting and stuff. And so you know that's always been really interesting to me. But I think Gorcin's probably dancing around the topic a little bit.
Yeah, I think he is.
So the categories were split by type and by scale. So military vehicles, 1/72 or smaller, 1/36 to 1/56. And then there, I think it was 57 to 72nd or something like that. And then there was 1/35 up. So I competed in two categories. One of them was my Iron Signet entry from last year. I'm not sure if we went through the feedback on the podcast, but basically what it came down to was the basing was pretty terrible. The judges were much more professional about that, but that was the short of it. It was pretty terrible.
This was the advice you got at Iron Signet.
At Iron Signet, And I think the judges there were actually mostly WASMEx guys. I got some good feedback from some of the other judges as well. But basically they said the weathering was too much and it was too consistent, sort of bled out from the rest of the model, and the basing was not good. Again, they were much more polite, much more constructive than that, but I'm just sort of
simplifying.
Summarize.
And so then
Not bitter about it at all.
no, genuinely I wasn't actually, because all the stuff that they pointed out, I straight away went, fair enough.
Those are the
I get it. I can see it.
more basic techniques I use or something.
And like I said,
the stuff I'm less experienced at.
And these judges as well, like we said, they've been scale modelling for decades. They know their stuff very, very well.
So I submitted that one, which would have been the 156 category, and I got a medal out of that one at a default because nobody else submitted.
Okay.
So that's neither here nor there. I think if you're first, if you're the first in the race of only one, you're also last. So you know. And then the other one that I submitted was in 135th, and it was actually the first time I scale modelled anything that big. It was 135th. I was also the first time I did dot filtering with oil paints. Which. I now feel human again after several weeks of filtering oil paints. And I managed to get bronze in that category, which was
fantastic.
Which I couldn't believe.
And like that's a massive thing because 135th military vehicles was like one of the biggest, if not the biggest category.
It's kind of the done thing. So when you get to 135th in military vehicles, if you go any bigger, you're not gaining any more detail. You're just gaining flat surfaces. And if you go any smaller, you start losing detail. 135th seems to be this.
How many other entries do you think there were?
At rough count, I want to say about 20 or 30.
I think it's been 20 or 25.
They were cool.
So there was a lot of fierce competition in that category. And I remember when I put mine down, I was like, look, I'm really proud of what I've done. I genuinely feel that there was an improvement from my previous armored fighting vehicle to this one. And I also want to mention, like, James Flame sat down and he really coached me through how to paint faces. And that is absolutely priceless to get his time and his help and his mentoring on that one. And it made a massive difference. I now feel like I can actually paint a face that looks like a face. It doesn't look like a skull wearing leather. I was happy to have just submitted. It was kind of like, I just want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to get some more feedback, and then to wake up, Sunday, go to the thing, and basically for me the whole thing was done at that point. Right? I'd submitted my model, I'd finished the project, I'm all done, And then, to walk into the comp hall and see that bronze sticker next to it, I just couldn't believe it.
Is this something you want to do for next year?
I
It's the same
actually
kind of thing.
quite enjoy it.
Yeah.
I can't say that I enjoy it more than I do putting an army together and putting it on the table.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things that I don't necessarily see myself doing very often. I think it was about 120 hours of work at over 3.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was painting that model.
No, that one I didn't get paid for. It was just really good to get a lot of support from other people, and my partner also was very supportive in that process as well, just giving me the space and the time to actually do it.
Yeah. You would have disappeared for those 3.5 weeks.
Look, if I
We're
didn't,
still gaming.
if I didn't, if my painting setup wasn't on the dining room, she probably would have felt like she was living alone. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. But yeah, it was. That's my fault because I started it so late. I think I probably spent about a week building it in December, and then it was about 3.5 weeks leading up.
Did you happen to talk to anyone there? Like, did people just go, I actually worked on this for 6 months or something like that?
There was a couple of people where I got that vibe.
Yeah, okay.
But I think a lot of them, I'm just one of those people that when I do something, it's just all consuming.
Yeah.
And so I'm also fortunate enough that my schedule, my commitments allow me to binge and go dive into something. And part of that is just because I will go, to everything else I go, nah, tough shit. I've got to do this, and I have to sort of say no to a lot of different things. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. A lot of people aren't as lucky. Or they have other commitments that are equally as important to them. So I think a lot of it is just sitting down and having the time to do it. I'm very careful in what I say next. I don't want to undermine anybody's efforts or anybody's skills, but a lot of these techniques is about time in. It's not talent, it's not gift. Yes, of course that will make a difference. But what it really is going, what's that skill, sitting down, learning that skill, and then applying that skill, and then or a technique if you want to talk specifically painting. And then with that scale model, that's all that it was. It was just a collection, I think at last count, of about 22 different techniques. And that's all that it was, quote unquote, all that it was. But again, it's about having the time to learn the techniques. I think I spent 12 hours on one Saturday just teaching myself how to do filtering with oils. Not everybody's.
Did you have test pieces? Or did you just go straight on the actual?
It was actually a pretty funny test piece. I had so for scale modeling bases, use a photo frame. That's the secret. If you ever need to base any diorama, use a photo frame.
Nice
and so you get that little I think they're $1 from IKEA, or they're $5 from Kmart. The little perspex sheet that comes out, I just undercoated that with the primer that my tank was on, and it gives you a nice flat piece, because the whole thing about oil filtering for color modulation is that you turn a flat piece into not a flat piece. And I was like, if I can do it with a perfect sheet of perspex or acrylics,
do it on anything.
I actually ended up figuring something out completely accidentally, because I undercoated it that, and I wanted the oil to behave the same way, so I sprayed it over with the same lacquer that I used on the model. And then once I was finished, I realized I could actually just peel it off as a sheet. So I have this little rolled up plastic sheet about, here's how I learned how to oil filter.
Because it came with a sheet on.
No, it was a sheet of acrylic, but because I covered it with a lacquer gloss to protect, because when you use oil paints you have to use really strong spirit thinners. And that would strip every other paint and remove the plastic. And so I had to seal the model with a varnish effectively. But when I did it to the perspex sheet, it had it didn't bond to the perspex, of course, because it
just made its own little thing.
and then it just peeled off as a sheet of plastic. And so yes, if anybody wants to know what my process will look like, I have a little rolled up plastic parchment I can show you. But
they couldn't get all the historical out of me.
I think you could also see the slow descent into madness on the Discord too, through all those pictures we got through there. That was a good time too.
Well, to be fair, I did ask if people wanted to see me go insane.
We did. Don't get me wrong. We had a great time.
we were doing it for your own health and well-being, so if we knew to send help.
Okay, good. That makes one of us.
Is there anything else you want to say about WASMEx?
Oh, look, the only thing that I would... Tyler's question was,
What did
is
you
there
buy?
anything else to talk about WASMEx?
Oh yeah, what did we buy? I bought my
Turn that camera off.
I brought my custodies with me, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be tempted to buy. I sat down at the table and I just painted some models.
And you
Now,
know,
if you didn't have any of those with you,
there's a bit of hindsight that comes into certain things that you do. So we made a joke about it a bit earlier, but I to compensate for my dive straight back into doing scale model. So I came from a scale model background. So when my big thing for WASMEx was like, I love this stuff by default because it's where I started. I've always really enjoyed doing scale model stuff. The models generally, some of the ones I've got, I relate to either family history that we've got with those models, like the HMS Vampire, or or they're things that I've just grown up going like that's really cool, or they take my interest in some other way. But I've always enjoyed the building, or even for models, even though I struggle with wargame miniature painting, I actually enjoy painting scale models, which is quite a different change of gears for me. So anyway, I won't say exactly how much I spent. What I will say is that
That's right, I'm going to put a total. Like,
no. The important part is the important part. I can just see dollar signs popping up in the background, but it was okay with my wife because of other things that I then sold on to make it a neutral sale post, which was not the right thing to do. But anyway.
so you didn't spend anything.
Oh no, I did. So I bought a 135th helicopter, a early war patrol boat in World War II, US patrol boat,
So an Elco?
an Elco, yep. A Scud B missile launcher, what else
These
did I
all
pick
at
up?
various different scales as well?
Yeah,
Or-
so generally larger scale. So a lot of the previous work that I've done very recently has been in 1/72nd, and I smash those things out in like 2 weeks generally. They're very, because I'm not going to, for example, the same amount of effort the Gorcin's done with his
Well, you
layering,
can't.
his
It's even
modulation.
smaller than our normal
Well, no, you
wargaming
actually
stuff,
can.
right?
You should have
actually
seen the
can.
1/72nd scale models that were submitted.
Guessing
Yeah.
planes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was some.
But there's some
AFVs
armor and
as well,
stuff.
yeah.
And 1/72nd, you can still apply the same techniques to 1/72nd stuff, and it looks really, really good. I generally don't, because my purpose is simply, I just want to get a couple of nice looking planes that sit in my cabinet. And anyone who goes and looks at my planes will go, they genuinely do
they're
look
nice looking planes.
I don't care about them being award winning planes. Some of the other models that I've picked
Unlike
up,
Gorcin's house.
some of the other models that I've
One
picked
model
up.
on my entire bookshelf.
Yeah, but it is the biggest model. Of
Maybe
the,
that's the secret.
yeah, well, if it is the case of bigger is better, that's great, because the 1/32nd Phantom 2 that I've got will be this big. Its body of the plane is quite large.
F4 Phantom,
F4 Phantom 2.
once described in the most perfect way as the leading distributor of MiG parts.
Yeah. As in it destroyed enough of them that they rained from the sky. Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I think it was military aviation history.
Oh,
Did it.
I
yeah.
love it.
So I've got one of those, and I wanted a really big plane, but the rule that I put on myself is not only do I have to sell off stuff to make it cost neutral, but it has to fit in an existing display cabinet that I have right now that does not have things in it. And so I only had...
empty that cabinet.
No, that's the beauty. I didn't have to empty the cabinet, but I knew how big that cabinet was.
So what Dan is saying, buy more display cabinets.
Yes.
You're welcome, IKEA.
But I really enjoyed. But I also went and I picked up sanding sticks. I picked up a miniature vise with a hammer point on it, so I can actually do some proper building, converting of stuff of that sort of scale. I redid all my supplies, putties, and things like that that have been ready to go. I picked up the HMS Vampire, which my grandfather served on. I picked up a lunar module command systems, which is that's not all ready for painting. That's now being built. So I did pick up a lot of stuff, but that's because I'm going to have that display cabinet out the back will be the scale model display cabinet, and once it's full, which basically everything I bought is going to fill it, that's it.
And once it's full, Dan's also going to be out the back.
I was lucky I wasn't out the back to begin with. But anyway, so needless to say, we'll see some posts of that stuff coming up. But yeah, it's just something that I enjoy that I'll keep going.
Did you pick up anything, Gorcin?
No, I took my own advice. I kept my hands and my wallets in my
You
pockets.
looked very happy walking around, looking at all the displays and picking things up that you wanted to buy.
I think for me, there was a couple of specific kits that I was after.
Yeah.
I was after some good quality stuff, and I didn't see them. So I didn't grab them.
Okay.
The swap meet everything there went like hotcakes, and I was
Right.
I was a bit late that day.
Yeah.
I had a few other things that held me up, so I couldn't get
My
that
fault.
open. But yeah, I think the part that I really enjoyed was just seeing like the ideas that people turned into models.
Yeah.
That was the part that I was really excited to see. Because again, I'm one of those people that is just like, this is the tank. It served in this front, and it was painted this way, and this is the kind of scratches it would get.
Yeah.
And that's not the correct way. It's not the only way. It's just the way that I do it. It just happens to be the common way. And so I saw people like doing scale modeling the Dementor's attack and the Hogwarts Express.
That was
that was amazing.
And I'm like, brilliant.
Yeah.
You've got scale model kit, and I think there were Night Haunts.
Yeah.
I think
Games
they were.
Workshop Night.
I thought they were custom.
They might have been.
Oh, well, they could have been, but they were definitely Games Workshop
Oh, really?
Games Workshop models converted up to reflect
Yeah.
the attack on.
And just seeing like, you know, one of the big displays from a whole club was all of the military aircraft that Australia ever used from chronological order from front to back.
That was
very cool.
That was massive.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And then like just seeing stuff like that, I'm like, this is what it's about. And
Or like the card and the papercraft, like battleships.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So they had like the HMAS Australia as a card model with paper. And I asked them like, okay, so I get how you can get like your flat structures and your angled structures and stuff, but what do you do for curves? And they went, well, it's actually funny, like there's a few different ways of doing it. You can simply go and sometimes get just tubing and just make it work with the tubing, and then you lay a paper on the outside. So technically that goes a bit above and beyond, same with Dow. But if you really want to, you can actually, you know, get your files or your paper pencils or your pencils and whatever, and just simply wrap the paper around it enough. And there's certain ways that you can actually get that form to hold, and then you've molded your tube.
Incredible.
Like, and I'm like, that's just so. Yeah, with some of the ones that were there, and they were like ironclads from the end of World War One and stuff. Like, there were some really cool things.
And you interviewed somebody who was making these warships. It wasn't the card ones, but it was something else. It was something like this big. And you were saying
Task Force 72.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was them.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, you know, where do you get this bit? And I was like, oh no, I scratch it all.
What? All of them are remote control.
Yeah,
Once a month or once every 2 weeks,
Once
they take them out.
Once
Once a month they take them all out into the water, have their remote controls, flow them around and stuff.
Sink.
Check out our Task Force 72 video.
It's incredible.
That's amazing.
So I think we'll move into now, look, because the reality is we could go on about WASMEx forever and a day. Go next year. That would be the thing that I
we'll
leave you.
be there.
Go next year.
We're moving into Outflank, and today we're going to be talking about Armies of Germany.
Ta-da.
So we've done a lot of tactics videos on things that are important, bolt action, list building theory, but we've never touched specifics on unit choices and compositions on making a force. Now, I'm in the position that I'm using this to my own advantage. I've actually sold all my bolt action forces and I'm starting again new. I have about 30 infantry figures and I haven't decided what I want to take, how I want to take them, what I want to buy. So I would like to get some opinions across the table about what we think of a variety of different things within Armies of Germany to then move into maybe some decision making on what I want to do to make my next tournament army and what's important and all that kind of stuff. As for a little bit more context, this might seem quite late in the bolt action life cycle. But
Come on, get it together.
You know, we're looking at a version 2 rule set and a version 2 Armies of book. But if you have a look at the recent videos with Alessio doing those interviews regarding decision making around version 3, they're very far off from anything that would be a completed product.
Admittedly, very fascinating to actually listen to what Alessio was saying and what he was thinking about. and there was actually one of the things it was one of the Monday Musings ones. One of the things that I found really interesting was that, a lot of the stuff that people talk about, Alessio was like, yeah, that came up when we designed Bolt Action. He's like, we thought about it, and ultimately we chose speed of play.
Yes.
Which is really interesting, and I think it contextualizes a lot of the game mechanics and a lot of the decisions in there. And he actually himself called it a Hollywood simulator, which I think is probably a Hollywood war movie simulator, which I think is probably like exactly where it fits.
And that is exactly how, when I was getting people started and teaching them, I'm like, you need to think of Bolt Action as the Hollywood cinematic simulation game. It's simulating war elements, but it is not a simulator.
Yeah, I mean, one of the starter kits is called Band of Brothers, for God's sake. Like,
Yes.
they know what they're doing.
So true.
Interestingly enough, in my last few months, haven't really been into Bolt Action. I've been looking at a whole variety of game systems that we'll talk about in other episodes, etc. And it's really come together that I enjoy the simplicity of the rule set. Those mechanics that are designed around fast decision making and identifying threats. It's part of good game design. It's not we're making this just because it's simple and that's how it needs to be.
I don't think there are many rule sets out there aside from the big one.
It's okay, we can name it. But there's no name or shaming.
I think Warhammer obviously has some of the best rules, streamlined rules to get people involved very quickly. I think Bolt Action is also up there.
Well, what's the basic rules for 40k now? 4 or 5 pages? And then everything else after that is just exceptions.
And that's for each phase. And then once you know that, you basically know the entire game, essentially. And of course there's nuances and whatever. But once, and then Bolt Action's up there too, and then you step into different systems and you're starting to see, hold on, there's a bit of jank going on.
Definitely.
If you think.
A lot of other systems, it's not about these wheels need grease. It's why is that wheel even there? Just get rid of that
100%.
one.
Yeah.
So why Armies of Germany? Okay, you've got your personal motives here. What else?
So another thing that I just wanted to bring up is in relation to the latest stuff that's been coming out of Warlord, we've had the FAQ release, which really brings down back to, for this topic, is designing an army within the Armies of book, because anything outside of generic is pretty much off the table.
Which is a tournament play.
Pretty much.
To a degree, but yes.
So that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about that. Germany is a really interesting one. Decision making on as to why you'd want to pick it. So it's probably the perfect opponent in the sense that it can fit any theatre. You can be early war, mid war, late war.
Bad guy.
It has the most opponents. So you're against Russians, you're against all the allies. So US, Australians, British, all that kind of stuff. So there's that option. Then there's these minor nations that used a lot of their equipment. So that's also another avenue that these models that you make. Lots of other nations have a Hetzer or a Stug, or they have the Stahlhelms. So that there's options there. Then with the units themselves, they have quite a lot of exclusive options. So assault rifles are not something that you see in a lot of other armies, etc. And Panzerfaust are fairly unique. It is a German weapon. You see it repurposed in other armies as well, but it does give anti-tank capability to your regular infantry squads.
And you can only take 2 in most squads, so they have it double what anyone else can take essentially.
I think it's versatility. So not necessarily if you didn't want to build a versatile list, for example, you wanted to build a very specific list. The Armies of Germany lets you build lots of different style lists.
Yes,
you can build mechanized lists. You can build infantry span that you're relying on officers. You can, what you might consider a Soviet horde list, you can actually do very well in the Armies of Germany.
And you can also do you can model them in different fronts, D-Day landings, Eastern Front, Fallschirmjäger, early war, late war. They have a lot of
Luftwaffe field divisions, Gebirgsjäger.
Wow, you can say that. I know the models.
Well, you'd think studying German would let you pronounce German words.
But look, this is probably the 4th attempt I've done for Germany.
Yeah.
For me, I've also commission painted quite a few, but I haven't painted every style of camo. There's a lot of different. What is it? You know that image where you got the 50 Shades of Field Grey, which is like 30 different. That's the one. So there's a lot of variety within painting.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking about opponents earlier, so you pretty much have everyone else.
Yeah.
There's a lot of instances, and more that I'm learning, particularly from Mark Felton, of Germans fighting Germans right near the end. The classic example is Castleder, is
we need to do a scenario of Castleder.
We do.
Yeah.
So
What am I missing?
So
Wait. Do we want it to be a surprise? I mean, you can read up in the history book.
Look, all I'm going to say is Germans, SS, French tennis players, a Sherman, and ammo.
and it's a castle.
Oh yeah, how could I forget the castle?
I'm so intrigued. No, I don't want to know anything.
And lastly, for me, just going to throw it in there. They got some really cool tank designs. You can't. That's undeniable. There's some nice looking tanks.
Look, they look alright.
Yeah.
They're no Sherman, but they look alright.
I also think the other reality from a gameplay point of view, the German force, I would say, is probably one of the more forgiving forces overall. So you can lose your NCO, it doesn't matter. You get extra shots on your machine guns to make them slightly better.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in a bit. But
Should we just get into it now?
Let's go.
What is the thing that makes Armies of Germany? What are the national special rules?
So the first key one would be Blitzkrieg, which is that +1 on the snap to action. So snap to action being a 2nd edition introduction of rules, but highly valuable normally when I play, irrespective of nation, but for the German officers especially, where you're getting that +1, your force is simply more maneuverable.
I think this increases, just quickly, I think it increases the skill ceiling as well, because I think snap to action isn't something that beginners use all that much.
That's right.
But then once you've learned to start using it, and because you've said, what is that, 2nd lieutenant's attacks, 1st lieutenant's
That actually gives you something.
Yeah. So this essentially.
But it's not true for Germans.
Yeah, because their 1st lieutenant.
Yeah.
Their
second lieutenant is the 1st lieutenant.
Yeah. So and it gives you that extra kind of mobility and maneuverability, I think.
Yeah.
And I would actually go, just caveat what you said about snap to action, or at least what I found is that the couple of new people that I've started, and when I started as well, snap to action seems to be one of those things that beginners use all the time because they're used to this I go, you go, I just want to activate a whole bunch of stuff and do big alpha strikes.
Yeah.
And then once you graduate from that, from sort of beginner to novice, you kind of forget about it. You go, no, I just need my dice in the bag. I need my dice in the bag.
Yeah.
And then every now and again, you might see an opportunity, it might not be a right one. And then at the other end, snap to action becomes a tool just like anything else, where there's a time and a place for it. And sometimes the best thing you can do is snap to action 2 things, and sometimes it's the worst thing you can do.
Yep.
And it seems to, you use it a lot, it falls off a little bit as you get more experience with bolt action, and then as you get even more experience, it starts to become one of the things to come back in your tools.
It's like that gawky horse kind of thing.
So then we got initiative training. When your NCO gets killed in a squad, you can roll a dice. If you get 2 or high, you replace the NCO that died with another unit.
Yeah, and
Another model.
another model.
A whole unit.
A whole unit. But I really think a lot of people. So the internet will tell you that initiative training is one of the most useless special rules. It never gets used. It's pointless. It should never have been put in. We want something different, or at least the internet trolls will. They completely miss the whole reason as to you're complaining about the fact that your rule's never used. Your rule is about the fact that your dude died, which means if no one is using that, you're saving your lieutenants, and the rule's doing exactly what it's meant to do.
It's mitigation, essentially.
Initiative training.
Yeah.
You don't go for the exceptional kill on the NCO because
No, exactly
you may
right.
as well not.
Yeah.
So that's already like
There's like an 80-something% chance.
That's
that
actually
you're gonna replace it.
removing the role. Because
Yeah.
that's the behavior people have. So it's treated as an auto. Your NCO's got another wound or whatever.
That's
You're
right.
losing another dude.
That's right.
Look out, sir. I guess is the rule, right?
For 40k, that's a comparison. It's not
So
working out.
like it's good. It's naturally good. It's making decisions for your other players.
Important thing to touch on there. We've talked about it before. Sometimes you make these decisions, or you have rules or units, not because of their dice rolling or their mechanics, but it's because it forces a difference in decision making.
Yes.
And the initiative training is exactly that.
It's exactly.
As you've correctly pointed out, the amount of times I've shot a unit with a sniper or gotten lucky exceptional damage otherwise, I've gone, oh, there's no point taking the NCO because there's an 83.3% chance you'll just get another one. I'll go for the LMG instead.
That's right.
That's usually what I end up doing.
And the LMG may actually end up being the better choice for you, but the fact is you never have to worry about that squad losing their NCO and getting that -1.
I think also shooting at the LMG is good because, segue, Hitler's buzzsaw.
Yes.
Really makes LMGs, and people argue all the time, one dice isn't enough. I think it makes all the difference.
Okay, so the thing about the rule is all German MGs get one extra shot by number of dice. So I think that was actually Dan, correct me if I'm wrong on this one. That was actually one of the changes from V1 to V2.
Correct.
All MGs got +1 dice.
Yes.
And then the Germans kept their +1 on top. So an LMG in V1 was 3. Then it went to 4,
and
and
now
the
it's
Germans.
5 for Germans.
Yeah.
And then
So
6 for MMGs and all that kind of stuff.
And so that essentially has pushed. They've still kept the German LMGs, also German MGs, for all of them, are still point for point more efficient than an existing LMG. Now, whether you think an LMG is efficient in the first place is a different conversation. But the reality is, any German unit that's able to take 2 light machine guns, as an example, that unit is firing just those extra couple of shots. But it's those extra couple of shots of range, and it's an extra couple of dice that you are able to convert kills on. And that's I know some people are just like, oh, but it's not that good, and I'm like, my Soviets would kill to have an extra shot on their LMGs,
And it's quite strong for almost a lot of the armoured vehicles. They're toting probably 2 machine guns.
MGs.
So, it's definitely something that's quite good. And then we got, good old Tiger Fear.
Good old that. The best rule in bolt action. Tiger Fear. So what actually is the distance now?
12 inches.
So
wasn't that bumped up to 18 in
no, I think it went from 18 to 12, right?
I thought 24 rolled up to 18.
My understanding was it was battlefield.
Check this.
Battlefield wide.
Yeah.
Then it went to 12 inches, and they were complaining that it wasn't. And when I say they, it was sort of rules by, I guess, intent of the internet. But 12 inches, they were seeing it wasn't enough, so they made it 18, which was too powerful, so they took it back to 12.
Right.
My understanding right now is that it's 12 inches.
Okay.
Tyler's going to look it up for us, so we'll get into it.
So the actual rule is neg 1 to neg 1 morale to order tests within range for actions that are not targeting the model with Tiger Fear.
And it makes them take the order test, even if they have no pins.
Okay.
So the last update I'm finding is September, and it says 18. So maybe it did go back.
No,
up.
there's one.
No,
there's an
they
update
did
after
one.
that.
We've had the recent.
We're getting bogged down.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It went from broken to really good to overpowered to really good to not that great, and maybe he's come back to good.
And admittedly, a lot of people forget the rule when they're playing.
Oh, well, that's the funniest part, right? Like the people that, because it affects units that are in transports if the transport can see the tank and they're deciding to do something different. But the funny thing is, like, the number of times, the number of times where people have sat there and they've gone, right, Tiger Fear, and it's just, and your opponent's sitting there going, I wasn't going to tell you.
Now, what's interesting about this is a key word. It applies to multiple vehicles, and the smallest frame is the P4 chassis. So Panzer IV can get it, but that doesn't mean other Panzer IV variants get it in the sense of, like, I don't know, Verbal Wind doesn't get it. Even though it's the same kind of structure, it doesn't have
The way that thing acts on the battlefield, I kind of feel like it should. But,
Verbal Wind fear.
So those are special rules. We'll add into the description what actually Tiger Fear is. We barely played it.
it's clarified in the FAQ. Just go check that out. It's free.
The main gripe that people have with it is pre-measuring, right? But that's kind of cooked.
Yeah.
Why? They actually changed that too.
So you should be measuring from the tank out to right.
But only when that unit's activating.
Only when that unit is activating.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if you're talking about pre-measure, and we've briefly talked about this on the podcast before, there are multiple ways that are completely legal within bolt action to do pre-measuring on different stuff. You just have to think about it a little bit.
So generally what I tend to do is when I'm moving my infantry squads, one of them will be laying down fire with the intent that the other one can eventually assault. So one of them will be a little bit further behind. And I will usually shoot with that unit first. And I will measure past my squad that one actually is intending to do the assault. And that tells me what the actual distance is. And I'm not doing that for one turn and one dice. No. I'm doing that regularly as things are moving around. And like I'm not like bending my tape measure or anything like that. But it's just like if I've got two squads and one of them's like 24 inches away, my rifle's in range. The other one looks to be about 18. I know I'm not going to get into assault this turn, for example. But and that's just one way of doing it. Another one is like you are entitled to measure any time you shoot anything ever. And people just go, it's 72 inches, it'll be in range. It's like, but you can measure, so why not? If you're not somebody who's confident with your measurements and doing your estimates, why not?
The pre-measuring and using mortars, but even if there's not a target in the way that you want to look at, just fire smoke. Just measure the smoke. Like people go, smoke is useless, and in my document thing I'm writing, I'm going, smoke pre-measure. Legit. So it's there are different ways of doing it.
Shall we move into the
we
units?
should roll forward.
So I'm just going to preface this. This is going to be quite useful for many nations because there is a lot of different units out there that have equivalents, quite similar, etc. So we'll start off the top with HQ, and this is something that's going to be the same across the board. So listen in even if you're not collecting a German army. So officers, what do we think? You can pick first lieutenant, second lieutenant, captains, and majors.
Look, I'm going to go back on my word here and say the second lieutenants in the German army are not a tax. They actually bring something. Or I should say that a second lieutenant can't be perceived as a tax in Germany. They can be perceived tax in other armies, but not in Germany.
So we'll start off the bat. Second lieutenant typically only gives you the one extra order dice, but it gives you two with German because of the
initiative training.
I've never seen anyone take anything higher than a first lieutenant.
Me either.
Yeah, not very common.
So being a TO, I've seen all sorts of different lists.
Approved very few.
No. I have seen captains used before on occasion.
Okay.
It very much, for example, when it comes down to organising events and tournaments and stuff, it is very dependent on the mission set that you're playing.
There's a dog under the table. Excuse me.
Easily distracted.
And essentially, unless you are playing big multiple platoon games, like when I say big, I'm talking sort of 2,500 to 3,000 points. You probably are not going to see a major, and the reason that I would sort of ration it that way is up until that sort of 2,500 point mark with you're talking a big army at that point for bolt action.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Even captains would actually still manage your command structure well enough, and the multiple officers that you'd have.
How many dice do you get with a major?
4.
It's 4, which means the Germans will get 5.
Jeez.
I've considered it before. I've been in Easy Army and I've been looking at inexperienced lists and lots of infantry and all that kind of stuff and go, does this actually offset it? And I never quite get to the point that it's worth taking the inexperience when you're paying that much points for those higher officers.
Yeah, so it's what you're paying for going from a first to a captain is a difference of 35 points.
Yeah.
You are going from a +2 to a +3 morale bubble. You're gaining 6 inches in your snap too, which is often massively overlooked. And you're going from a +2 to a +3. Now, generally, what I find is that with a first lieutenant, or in your lit, or just generally speaking, once you get to about your 3rd pin marker, you're pretty much guaranteed to have that unit rally.
Yep.
What a captain allows you to do is have a big bubble where a 3rd pin marker, you still might not rally.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big deal that a lot of people overlook. When I ran my paratrooper list, I thought about sneaking a captain in for one of the tournaments I actually did, just because if you then pair them with a first lieutenant, you actually get an 18-inch snap bubble. And I was staring down the barrel of about 15 or 16 order dice, I think it was 1,000 or 1,250 points or something. So it was a lot of MMGs and lots of regular units and stuff. But like that's a lot of weight in numbers, and it's a lot of initiative that you can control with a captain. So I wouldn't overlook it, but I think because of the way that I build lists, I generally stick infantry core, so they're bringing a little bit more morale with them in the first place. I usually just stick with a first lieutenant because I find that 2 dice is enough for a snap 2, and 6 inches and a +2 is enough. If I would go, I'd very seriously consider a captain if I was going an all regular core, because remember, by going all regular, you're losing 1 morale base, and so having an extra morale and a bigger morale bubble would help a lot. I don't necessarily think I would go to using all of the snap 2s, even only a 3 instead of a 4 for a captain. But that's the only time I would consider it. I wouldn't necessarily do it, particularly like I would if I was going 5 infantry squads at full whack and I was relying on weight and numbers. Probably I'd have a hard time deciding whether or not I'd take a captain. If I was going what you'd consider a Soviet horde or an inexperienced squad, absolutely take a captain every day of the week.
Makes sense.
Very, very interesting. I mean, there's a lot of decision making that you have to do with snap 2s, but their morale bonus is something that's going to help you all the time. So they're quite a good unit to have.
And they give it to themselves.
And they're always useful as that last objective taker or something like that.
Or a sniper bait.
And
Sniper bait,
with Germans, why not give
them pretty tasty?
with Germans, why not give them ARs? Like there's kind of no reason not to.
Submachine gun.
SMGs do look cool. All right. In the other part of the HQ, you've got medics. I very rarely take them. I think I don't have a medic model at the moment. I have it at various points, but what do we think of the special role?
Well, so there's probably 2 things. So, what do we think of the special rule, as in how a medic operates? I think you have to understand. So I came from a 40k background largely, which meant that when I looked at medic, I was thinking, old school feel no pains or recovery rolls or 4+ and things don't die. You can only save models within 6 inches of the medic specifically for starters. Even if he has orderlies, it has to be around the medic. 6 inches is not that very big, and you only save them on a 6. Now, what that means is that when you think about it from a bolt action point of view, it is a supporting bonus that uses up an order dice.
That's the
or gives you an order dice.
To flip that around, it's a 30-point order.
That's the only reason I've ever taken a medic. I'm like, all the other slots in my army are full. Might as well bring a medic.
So I think that probably means that even for the reasons that all 4 of us just then came up with as to why we would take a medic, you're not taking it for the rule. The rule is simply a bonus that goes alongside.
This is the discussion I hear from every single person I've ever talked to about medics. We might leave it there for medics. Let's go straight on to the fun one. Well, for me, I like taking a forward observer. I've
so much fun.
I've always liked taking the air, and I think the
it's good fun.
I think when I understood the rules a bit more and saw the bubble of pinning and things that are happening that aren't just the target, I was like, this is actually a really fun unit. And and 75 points, I think that's the regular cost. It's quite cheap. And when you look at the artillery observer, very strong unit, but I always find for whatever reason I just can't fit in that full 100, but 75 tends to do it. But this time around I'm actually going to flip it the other way for my kind of list. Didn't preface this at all. I'm building kind of a defensive Berlin, like kind of last defenders. I don't think there's any Luftwaffe in the air at this point. So I think artillery would actually fit the theme for me, and I want to learn to use it better because for Artie, there's smoke as well, isn't there?
There's a smoke barrage or a regular barrage, and but the artillery can also be used as a so the artillery can be used as a area denial attack as well. So the airstrike has to target a unit. You don't get a choice of just putting it down on the ground.
Yeah.
The artillery strike gives you that flexibility, which
Yeah.
is it's actually one of the reasons why you pay more points for it, is because
Yeah.
you don't have to target a unit.
I've always been the other way. I've always been like, artillery is the only way to go. And then
Artillery wins wars.
Yeah, artillery
Spoken
wins
like
wars.
a true Russian.
There you go. I'm a German player. There you go.
Yeah.
But was it your event? I think it was varsity.
Yeah.
I got an air observer.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe it was not. I was at an event and I was given an air observer in the list that I was given. And I had so much fun. Like, sitting there being like, what's going to come and hit this unit? Like, is it going to be a massive bomber? So I
It's
personally
Hollywood
really,
Simulator.
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
nutshell.
And you can imagine like,
You can make the plane noises.
Yeah.
pew pew pew. You have to. Like, it should fail.
I tell you what, getting a model plane and making that either the marker or a crash wreck or something like that is really fun. And there is some very cheap planes. You can go on eBay and get 156 scale stuff for about $2 or $3 bucks.
I find for like an air attacking plane, 1/72 blends in a
tends
bit
to
better.
be what most people do.
It looks a bit,
on a nice
looks a bit better,
flight
but for a crash plane,
Yeah,
156 for sure,
definitely.
for sure. And well, you picked up that 109 for like $5 or something.
If delivered. Anyway,
you guys have anything to say about artillery?
I think this
I
is
think
more
they're
so.
a really fun unit. Either one.
I think more so like looking at it from a purely like tactics and meta perspective. One of the things that I see a lot of the top players doing, and I don't think this is necessary to win, I think it's just a common thread, is that there seems to be a big preference for concerted effort styles of play. So you're getting all 3, 4, 5 infantry squads in a death bubble and pushing. It works really well on the opposite end for denying that style of strategy. And the flip side is if you're I'm just going to call it death bowling. If you're death bowling around the table and you want to go left, you just drop the artillery on your opponent's right.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're now scrambling or panicking or trying to move out of the way and reacting to it, and you can just chew through the units on the left.
Yeah.
And I find that death ball strategy is so difficult to deal with. Even if you've got your own artillery observer and it goes in and you don't mince a whole bunch of units or you just pin everything out. All you've done is bought yourself time. But you can't fight your way through it. Just because of the nature of bolt action and the way that it activates template weapons and all and the things that make bolt action, like once that death ball has formed and started rolling, you're toast eventually. I found. So I guess that's what I'm going to be doing in the next tournament. Heads up.
Death balling.
Yeah.
Well,
Perfect.
Love it.
so the key to stopping the death ball then we should talk about, which is core infantry squads.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to bore the listeners with this. The page there's a good few pages for Germans on all of the infantry options, and I
Most
don't.
nations, to be fair.
And I mean that's. Let's have a general discussion just on infantry itself. The main bonuses for Germans is that you can, compared to all the other nations, you can also include assault rifles and you can also include Panzerfausts.
Yeah.
And typically you can get away with 2 LMGs if you want it.
Yeah. I mean, they're all just reskins of each other, essentially. The one thing being Waffen SS, which come with stubborn and if you take them with ARs, well, that's just tough fighters. But they come with stubborn. So not stubborn, fanatics. Thank you.
Yeah.
So they can get real deadly, real fast.
Generally, the theme is that like ideologically motivated troops in lots of different nations get fanatics. Whereas paratroopers generally get stubborn. As a default. Just because stubborn is supposed to represent you not caring about how many you've lost and how surrounded you are. That sort of thing.
And for those new, we're talking about coming with fanatics, talking about coming with stubborn. You're paying those points as well.
Yeah,
so
of course.
There's no magic unit combination that gets fanatics for free. So in that, Germans have a variety of options of either elite infantry and then it goes to SS and whatever else. So you have the variety to pick and choose what you want for the points level. And most nations have this. There are some outliers out there, etc. Typically, for me, I like to have a large squad, and 10 men is about the maximum most of the German squads have. And, very early in this game, I used to be squeezing in all the supports that I wanted and the vehicle that I wanted, and I would do that at the cost of the infantry, and I'd go, maybe it can be 8, maybe it can be 7 per squad or whatever, and I delete that. I need 10 more points, I'll delete that man or whatever. I found that last year I can't deal with infantry squads that have more firepower than me in that sort of mentality. So
you can't go punch for punch.
So so for me, I've decided as a baseline it has to be 10.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I prefer veterans rather than regulars.
I
don't
think
think you're
Germans
paying
work better as veterans.
I don't think
like
you're
as an
paying
elite list.
that much more for veterans.
And this is actually one of the things that I find really surprising that you don't see more. And I was going to say if, but the real answer is when I start my German army. I'm actually going to do this. Because when we talk about Soviet horde, that's the sort of like a whole bunch of inexperience, and you stack LMGs and you get officers and all that sort of stuff. But I don't really know of any Soviet squad that can upgrade, as in go from inexperienced to regular.
Yeah, true.
I don't really know. There might be.
The basic rifle squad.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the basic rifle squad, because I know what you're saying, is green. So they can go from inexperienced to regular, and then you get mixed units for Germans, which can make it go regular to veteran.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing that I don't see, tells you how much I play Soviets. I'm an Allied player, so I don't come across Soviets that much. But one of the things that I'm really surprised I don't see more of is you see like Volksgrenadier span or Volkssturm span. Yeah. Because I think that the Grenadiers, they go from green to regular to veteran on one casualty. Yeah. And like
possibly.
And it's like if you're gonna spam anything in experience, it's gonna be something that freely upgrades to regular or veteran. In my opinion. So I'm surprised you don't see that more in German lists.
I have so one of the guys who I used to play with in a gaming group, he made a
it's Volksgrenadier does that.
Anyways, so he did this army and he found it very swingy. He found it, there were some games where we lined up where everything just stayed inexperienced and it just got minced. He had some things where it moved to regular and so we were on par. Then on the very odd occasion, you had enough units get hurt, survive, and upgrade to veteran that all of a sudden it was an absolute whitewash for me where I just got trounced. But those games are few and far between. Generally, what ends up happening is you move. Generally, what happens is you end up moving from the inexperienced state to the regular state, but you only get to do that change if the unit's left alive after the first shots. So, because you don't. It's like with the green rules, you don't. Yes, as soon as you take the first casualty off,
but
you
all
roll
the
for the
casualties
test, but all the casualties are simultaneous before the allocation. So if you're hit by a medium howitzer that obliterates 50% of the squad by default, yes, you might upgrade, but you still need to take a morale check.
Well, see, and that's the thing that's interesting. I find in bolt action generally, turn 2, you'll lose a couple of guys from a couple of squads, unless you got unlucky and you copped a big template hit.
Yeah.
But a medium howitzer hitting a veteran squad is going to mince just as equally as hitting a bunch of inexperienced.
That's right.
The issue, of course, comes down to the morale.
Yes.
Naturally.
Yes.
But so this is, it's that's what I'm saying. I just find it interesting. I think it'd be a really fun list to play. Is if you get at least 3 inexperienced squads and get the points difference because you're 33 short. Yeah, you get the points difference for captain, and he can just baby them. And then if you want to be a coward, the other 2 squads can be regular, I guess. But really, exactly. Just all in. Get a captain and a first lieutenant, and then have a nice little 18-inch +2/+3 morale bubble, and just swarm.
Yeah, like if that's your idea, definitely you have to go like all in on that.
You may as well commit to the idea, right?
Well, that's another line of thinking with that particular unit. 2 units are in range. One's regular, one's them. Ooh, they could upgrade if I kill them and go for the other unit.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's some decision making there that actually makes them
And
quite
so-
interesting.
Yeah, if you're asking me how I would play Germans, it's exactly how nobody else plays Germans.
Yeah.
And there's probably a very good reason why people don't play them like that.
Well, have a look at the weapon options they get.
Yeah.
Have a because you got to remember
They have to take
one of-
ARs or something like
one
that.
of the biggest things that you look at is you go, right, so for the point to point cost of what I could get, is this as good as what XYZ other unit gets?
An LMG and a regular is worth more than an LMG and an experienced, point for point, because the inexperienced is neg 1 to hit. Yeah, no, I get that. But the thing about that is the weapon options are extremely lenient, and that's a general thread in German squads. I mean, admittedly, it's only one LMG, but coming as a US player, I'm lucky to find an LMG in an infantry squad.
This is very true.
The irony for me is that I play completely opposite. Like, I have the smallest squads possible, pack them full of LMGs, like,
Or
everything
ARs.
is fanatic and experienced. I have my death ball, speaking of death ball, death ball of AR toting fanatics, and like, that's how I like to play the Germans, just because it's not how other people play the Germans. Like, we're both on opposite sides of the table, but I don't think, and I also take my Panther.
Well,
Literally.
and Jacob will play them differently, and I will play them differently. That's, I mean, so either way, there's a lot of different types of infantry choices to suit those styles of play.
All food for thought for this kind of stuff, but for me and the way that I'm thinking of designing this stuff, we'll get into it. I'm really liking the fact that the unique part of Germans is Panzerfaust themselves.
Yep.
And I'm thinking...
Everything's an anti-tank threat. A genuine anti-tank threat.
Yeah, because it is very tough. Like I have memories of games against Nick where he's using these 3 anti-tank teams to deploy
just the
halfway
2
up the
teams
board for the Russians
For
and that kind
Soviets,
of stuff. And you know, I'm looking at it from maybe I'll try it the other way around. All my infantry has Panzerfausts, have at least 10 men of them, have as many squads of them as I like, and then look at HE options for vehicles if I want to go that way, or even just go all infantry or whatever.
Actually.
Well, it's just something different to try, and I think it will fit thematically with what I have in mind for this battle for Berlin kind of stuff. So we've gone
just quickly.
Yeah.
ARs or SMGs?
Oh man, it is tough.
So that's one way to put it is simply ARs versus SMGs. But are you thinking which is better or which is the better choice?
do you choose?
Yeah, for me, I think those extra inches.
You guys should be able to predict what answer I'm going to throw back at you right now.
SMGs.
No. So your weapon selection should be entirely dependent on the role that unit needs to perform.
ARs or SMGs, take a side.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Boring. I mean, it's cool. They've got the unique option of having the hours no one else has. You can argue if you want to put in FG42s either as a LMG sometimes, either as an assault rifle. It depends how you want to categorize it. They don't actually have it in the book. I think it might even be not an assault rifle, the other one. Starts with an A. No, not battle
Automatic.
rifle. Automatic, yeah.
Yeah, the thing about the FG42 is it, as a weapon design, it was intended to be like, can we just replace the Kar 98K, the MG34, the MG42, and the MP40 and the STG44 with one rifle? Now, if anybody's done any reading about military procurement, you know that this is a classic example of a good idea fairy. Why don't we just get all of these things that do all of these different jobs and we just replace it with one thing that does none of the jobs? That's usually what ends up happening. Except the FG42 was actually not bad at all of the different roles. So it is actually...
but it still didn't excel compared to the...
It was jack of all trades, master of none.
Correct, but interestingly, it was actually an equivalent battle rifle to the Kar 98K, except it was semi-auto. It is probably a better comparison. You know, a lot of people like to draw a straight line to the BAR, but it was actually quite heavy, and the rate of fire was quite slow on the BAR, and you didn't have the choice of an optic. I mean, sure, the FG42 optics were exceedingly rare, but at least you had the choice. You might have been lucky and gotten one. But the FG42 was a fair bit lighter than the BAR. I'm not sure what the exact weight was, but it was balanced a heck of a lot better. It wasn't front heavy. And so if you think about the FG42 specifically, it's actually a pretty decent like squad weapon. If you're talking about Fallschirmjägers, which is the intent, and pilots and stuff, just give them one weapon. It was probably closer to a fully automatic Garand with with a 20 round magazine. It's probably a closer comparison than a BAR. Because the BAR can do semi, but stuff lugging that thing around and taking shoulder shots with it. But with the FG42, you absolutely can. Standing offhand,
quite comfortably.
Yeah.
Well, not that I've shot one, but
as well. Like it kind of makes sense that it was a jack of all trades with regards to how the Fallschirmjäger dropped, because when they dropped, all their equipment was dropped in canisters.
Hilarious.
They literally landed unarmed.
Hilarious.
Insane is what I think. Hey, let's take these elite troops. You're not having a gun, go find it. Like battle royale.
That's actually a good logistical point that no one's pointed out. I hadn't actually considered it, but it makes a lot of sense. Because one of the things you hear about a lot with paratroopers is like, you don't drop with you end up not having your squad, or sometimes even with your company or with your division. And so just walking up to a weapon crate and knowing what's in it, and cool, one FG42 for me and 8 mags or whatever the loadout happened to be. Makes a lot of sense actually.
And then you're like, damn, I wish we had something to give us cover right now. Oh wait, we do.
Where is it?
It seems like a good idea to make it versatile, because you don't have to be like, where's the MG box?
Yeah.
And now I just sound like I'm playing Fortnite. Anyway, let's move on.
So very quickly, do you guys have an ideal squad in your mind for any army? Germany would be good if you can think about it. So what do you like to do?
As an infantry squad?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I still think deployment's probably my weakest part of my game. That's why I've been playing Rangers recently. In the last tournament, I had dedicated LMG squads and close combat squads. I've recently played a couple of games with a very similar list, except I swapped out the LMGs. I just got rid of them, and I just loaded up with BARs in all 4 squads. And I found that because my deployment is so weak, if I have very dedicated squads, it actually catches me out. I've got the wrong squad in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so I usually find to go for generic versatile squads. And so with Germans, it'll probably be an LMG, 1 or 2 Panzerfausts, and then 2 to 3 close range weapons, either SMGs or ARs, depending on what my points allow me to do.
Yeah, I mean, when I got early in this game, the first thing I wanted to do was load up Germans with lots of SMGs, lots of ARs, get that Hollywood feel for them. And then for the next year or so, I was pretty much just needs to be a rifle squad, 10 guys, all rifles, and that will work out well for me.
My favorite is I don't put Panzerfaust with my MGs because I think it's a waste for what I want to do with my squads. So I'll put some squads on the side and have my opponent worry about which side the Panzerfaust is coming from. But my favorite squad to go to is literally 5 guys, 2 LMGs, veterans. You just load up and just because you have all these little squads that
who needs an ablative rifleman?
That's it. But you've got these 3 or 4 squads that can pump out 10 shots each, but they're this small, so you can hide them.
And what's really nice about Germans in particular for that, they are the comparison to the MG squads of the other nations because of Buzzsaw, but they can move and shoot.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think my ideal perfect squad sounds like I'm describing some sort of magic date. But, to be honest, regardless of my ideal squad: Gorcin, Jacob, Tyler, all of the RHG crews, all of my other wargaming buddies that have got me this far in life. No,
we are not completing any objectives
unless it's sinking pints.
So in all seriousness, I think the big one, if I'm thinking about it, if the particular nation has access to one, because not all nations do in this particular case, is an engineer squad.
And the Sturm Pioneers.
Horrifying. The engineering style squads. I actually don't. I care less about the the special rules that might be accompanying, like in Western Desert, the Royal Engineers get demolitions and all that sort of stuff. That's icing on the cake if I get to use that sort of a unit with those rules. What I'm more interested is it's a 10 wound flamethrower. And so it's something that you can put in a vehicle or a truck. You get it around the field. You've got 10 ablative wounds that essentially there to soak up some damage to make sure that flamethrower doesn't die. But more importantly, if that flamethrower rolls that 1 and drops its fuel, I do not lose an order dice. I've got a whole unit built up ready to go that I can still use for an aggressive push.
And you don't lose, if you take the Stone Pistol, you don't lose anti-tank capability.
That's right.
And if you've loaded up other weapons like SMGs, etc. You've still got a pretty lethal close combat squad.
My ultimate preference would actually be Soviet assault engineers in body armor with a flamethrower, a Panzerfaust, and coming out of a truck.
That's a good 200-point unit there, probably with the truck included.
I think it's closer maybe to 300. But the thing is that unit of 10 is incredibly resilient. Small arms fire, because you would take them as veterans. Small arms fire only hurts them on 6s. So unless you're coming at them with something heavy, you can't touch them. They're very hard to hurt.
Should we move on?
Well, one point I was just going to make right there is the pioneers, engineers, etc. typically tend to be one of the only options that most nations have to take a full squad with SMGs.
Yes.
Interestingly, the Americans don't. I think you can only end up with a max of 2 SMGs and a BAR in your engineer squad.
Right.
Yeah, and it sucks.
So you can't have like a full SMG squad as Americans.
Nope, and I think it's only an 8-man squad max.
That's trash.
There's
only...
only...
You can take a BAR, a spare SMG in the NCO, and a flamethrower. And that's your fully kitted out veteran squad.
Because they didn't...
I don't know.
I was going to say, I'm going to be careful here because I haven't actually read with the Manau and Panau Island books yet. But to my understanding... because the M1 Garand and the carbines all have that fire and maneuver piece anyway, their regular level of shooting is already quite good. So having the submachine guns attached to it as a full squad loadout almost doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. It's much better to have more BARs.
Even if it's only 1.
Right, let's blitz through the infantry teams that you've got. So I'm just going to run through what we have, and then we'll have some thoughts about them. So all nations have a machine gun team. Benefit with Germans is the +1 for buzzsaw.
Can you get...
Jacob's like, we're just going to run through all of this stuff, and Tyler's like, wait.
HMGs.
No
one takes them.
You can't get them for Germans.
You can't take
Germans don't have a
They
heavy
do have
machine
something
gun.
cool to Brook machine gun, which has some... I think it
Different.
has penetration, but not something you can take in Armies of Germany.
And I think you can get in one of the campaign books, I'm not sure if it allows you to take it in a generic one, is you can get like +1 penetration on an MMG.
For an experience, for a veteran crew or something on
MMG
34.
And then Western Desert allows you to take them as LMG squads for move and shoot as well. Then we got the Panzerschreck, which is a pretty strong unit, but a lot of people have opinions on the points cost, that it's too expensive. But I think it's not well priced. I think it's a powerful unit.
I think I generally will run a Panzerschreck or a bazooka or something in my armies if I can.
Does it require a transport?
Generally, I would put mine in a transport. Like the 30-inch range is good on a lot of things.
24?
24. I was thinking of bazooka, but
I think bazooka's 24 as well.
I thought one of them outshoots.
Someone will factor.
Whatever. Either way, it doesn't matter because normally I put them in a transport. And it's simply for that. It's simply because I prefer not to take the long range shots. Unless I absolutely have to.
Ironically, shape charge.
Yes, I know. But it's not actually because of shape charge. It's the rolling to hit, and it's the engagement of other targets. Like I'd rather be a little bit closer. And the truck just helps me get there. So Jacob's got the rule book. What have we got?
I'm just looking at weapons charts if we need it. But bazooka and Panzerschreck are 24 inches. The Shrek has the +6 pen. The bazooka has +5.
Sweet.
So that's
fine.
actually
There we
why
go.
it might
be more
even be a
expensive.
little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely
yeah,
it's definitely
yeah.
more expensive because of that
Um,
+1 pen.
So we then have the AT rifle.
AT
teams.
rifles.
I don't really see people take these.
They're,
Yeah.
I
so-
take them in my Soviets.
Yeah. So I think it's like 29 points, 2 models with the +1 pen.
Well, it depends. They still have all three. Like you still have inexperienced regular veteran.
Yeah.
The difference is that you're only buying 2 guys and a rifle. It's like +2 pen.
+2 pen. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You know, and the
It
you can
usually ends
take,
up being +1 because of the range.
yeah, they can take the Soviets can take 3 for 1 in the
Yep.
slot
Oh, yeah.
choice, and so generally what I would normally do is I'd take 3 for the 1 plus I'd add in a sniper, and you actually run them as sniper teams.
I was about to say,
but
is it a good idea?
Yeah.
To maybe
I do
run
it all
them
the
as
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For the
Like,
penetration.
essentially a Barrett 50 cal.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you still get the hit modifiers, which is the tricky part.
Yeah. Yeah.
The-
But when you do hit,
Oh, I will tell you though,
Yeah.
they cause an absolute headache for all of the soft skin truck,
Yeah.
half track things that run around.
true,
So
true.
having 3 of those set up just to pop holes in those is very
I
good.
wonder what the actual probability difference is between an LMG on a soft skin versus an anti-tank rifle team.
The biggest thing is the hit, to be fair. So
Yeah.
because if you're
Well,
anti
it'll be
because they switch on either
Yeah.
pole. So the LMG is more likely to hit but less likely to damage the
1 in 6.
whereas the
1 in 4.
it's
1 in 2. Sorry.
one in
Yeah.
and but the anti-tank rifle team is less likely to hit, but if it
Yeah.
hits, you've got a +2 to your minimum
Yeah.
damage by
Yeah.
default. So
Yeah.
worst case scenario, unless you roll a 1, worst case scenario is the 4 because you get for 4 for the pen. But you're realistically going to hurt most vehicles, and you're probably going to be, because of the way you can position and you can move and fire with them. You can generally get the side angle pretty well, which gives you another +1. So then long range isn't a problem, and that's
then we go on to crazy little remote control car, the Goliath. So its special rule is that it moves 18 inches from your team.
Rather
when
than
you-
firing, you're dropping.
You're dropping it
little
18
RC car.
inches.
Yeah.
Yep. You roll d6, 1 to 4, it breaks down, doesn't do anything. 5 to 6, it does a +7 pen damage.
How many points are these?
60 points? No, 60 points regular.
So that's for the squad that comes with the Goliath, right?
Yeah,
3
so-
guys,
yeah,
1
3.
Goliath,
Yeah.
1 shot in the Goliath.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so there's a 33% chance it does
I've
something.
got the model, man. It looks cool.
Like you're talking about making a swingy list. This sounds fun. Like when it goes off +7 pen.
Okay, so we sat down to play Jacob's list, and instead we've got my German list. The thing that I love about it is that if it hits a building, it's a heavy howitzer.
That's so good.
Yeah.
No, play it for fun. I mean, I guess that's as far as it goes.
Snipers are an auto include, I think.
Yeah, snipers.
But do you take them with vets or regs?
Veterans.
Vets every
You have
time?
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody's bold enough to bring a captain, bring a sniper.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have
Yeah.
to bring a
Now,
sniper because someone else is going to bring a sniper.
Alright, so flame's also something that people like to take a lot. Do you take a sniper over a flame?
See, I'm one
They're
of those
not
people that I
great.
take an engineer and
And a flamer.
And a flamer team.
And a sniper.
and a sniper
And a mortar. And a howitzer.
and a howitzer.
Yeah.
How much damage do you want to do?
Well, the thing is, like, aside from those big weapons, most of the damage in bolt action's like pretty low.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
you get a squad who has activated out in the open and you gun them
For
down
sure,
pretty close
for
range.
sure.
But that's the way that you get damage. And so I'm just like, I like blowing things up. I like
Yeah.
setting them on fire.
For sure.
When it comes to flame, Germans have the special one that they can do 2 shots if they take a different flamethrower, but it's only got 1 use.
Einstorss.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yep.
And then we got mortars. So you light, medium, heavy, like most nations. What do you guys think on what's your preferred mortar to take? A lot of people, medium seems to be the most popular,
I
but
just take
why
medium.
don't you take heavy?
Points.
Yeah.
It's only 15 more points.
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, it
I know.
I never see people take
Yeah.
heavy,
I've
and
seen
I
them.
don't know why.
I've seen them,
Yeah.
and it hurts.
Yeah.
It really hurts.
Yeah.
I think one of the one of the reasons that you may not necessarily see them genuinely is actually the dollar cost in purchasing them as for the return.
Yeah.
Maybe.
However, putting that aside, it's a lot harder to leverage and, I guess, use a heavy mortar. Sorry, let's say that if you were fighting me and you have a heavy mortar,
Yeah.
you're going to have, I would expect you'd have a spotter with it, that you'd purchase the spotter to go with it, because otherwise you're going to have
What are you doing?
Yeah,
Well,
you're putting it in.
let's
You're putting
put
it.
that out there straight away. I don't take mortars without a spotter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do on occasion if it's medium
Yeah.
or and light. You obviously can't take one.
Yeah.
But the reason that I'm a little hesitant about the heavy mortar is because if I know that you have a heavy mortar on your list, I deliberately will play around it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
So I deliberately will make sure that I am either in some sort of cover or making it hard for that spotter to see me or trying to eliminate that spotter.
But that makes me want to take one more because I have now affected how you're going to play the game.
But I've now affected your army list.
But how many points is it? Like
It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't. But this is the whole thing. Yes, you're forcing me to play around the fact that you've got a mortar. I'm not going to be scared of engaging with your mortar. So it's not like I'm. It's not like I'm worried.
Somebody who is scared.
It's not like I'm worried about the mortar.
Yeah.
There's going to come a time where I'm going to have to probably run the gauntlet and risk getting hit. But what I simply mean by it is, I will constantly be trying to move quickly to get inside your minimum range.
Yeah.
I think that's a...
What is the heavy mortar minimum range? Is it closer than 12?
Oh,
Sorry, further than 12?
let's have a look. 12 to 72. So it has even more range than the medium, which goes all the way to 60.
But it doesn't have
that
a shorter-
really do anything.
It doesn't have a shorter medium
No.
or longer range
No.
medium range. I think the main reason why I don't take a heavy, even though it is only 50 more points, is that I use my medium mortar to hit stationary targets. Most of the, usually not an infantry squad.
Yeah.
It usually ends up not being an infantry squad, and I avoid artillery teams. So an extra inch on the template, an extra pen, usually doesn't give me the return that I'm after.
Yep.
The way that I use my mortar. If I was targeting big fat infantry squads,
Then it would make sense.
then I'd get a
sure.
heavy. And I have felt that.
Yeah.
I have felt that in tournaments where a Lucky 6 has just completely blitzed the squad out in the open. And he's like, veterans, oh yeah, 2s, and I'm like, oh, it's a heavy.
So we're going to move on to artillery, and we're going to probably go into some of the stuff that we talked about mortars just then, because I think there's a little bit more decision making when choosing the heavier ones with that. But the artillery section includes high explosive and anti-tank. And how do you make that decision to pick which one that you want for your army?
Well, we talked about this just before we hit record.
Yeah.
I was like, I always take AT.
Yeah.
And then Dan brought up a really good point, or Jacob rather brought up a really good point.
Oh.
That's because I bring a super heavy AT gun on my Panther to basically every German list I bring, right?
Yeah.
And so I already have something that's got the blast template of a heavy howitzer. And so I don't feel like...
No. Super heavy AT gun's only a 2 or 3 inch template.
So it goes to 3 inch, which is a medium.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
yeah, that's
medium
fine.
howitzer.
Yeah.
But I find that's enough. And then the pen just outright kills anything that decides it wants to try and stay. So for me, it's not I'm not I'm scared of infantry because I have that super heavy AT that literally can just try and double around.
Yep.
So I'd rather have an AT gun that I can just sit and be like, hey, don't touch this side of the board.
So would you take AT on an artillery piece if you have a Panther already?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it frees up my Panther to then be used.
Yeah. Perfect.
And then so the opponent isn't going, oh, that Panther is focusing on my tank.
Yep.
It's going, what is that Panther going to shoot?
For Gorcin, I've never not seen him take a medium howitzer. So
I used to take light howitzers.
Yeah,
They are pretty good bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Oh, they are. Yeah.
But you seem to preference HG over AT when you for the
100%.
artillery slot.
I've got I mean, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I play cat and mouse with tanks. You want to bring a big heavy panther, cool, and enjoy investigating terrain features the rest of the game. That's my play style. It's the way that I play.
Yeah.
I like to play lots of light mobile units. So I will just hopefully outrun the panther, and that's worked by and large. Most games I haven't that I've come across a heavy tank or equivalent. I haven't struggled. There's been one or two cases where I'm going, oh no, this is going to suck, but generally it's been okay. And so because of that, and I'll take a medium AT gun, which can still pin a heavy vehicle. And so I'm usually just going howitzers all day, every day, because as you said before, bolt action's an infantryman's game. Light howitzer really good bang for your buck, but no spotter. It's only a 2-inch template, therefore 2-inch pen. And because everybody's bringing big fat infantry squads nowadays, I find that the medium howitzer...
Target-rich environment.
I find that the light howitzer is consistent enough to deal damage, but I find the medium howitzer is the difference between crippling a squad and deleting it. And so that's why I tend to the medium.
And what about you, Dan? AT or HE?
I actually change views depending on what army I'm playing, and that's basically because of how I build and play certain types of armies. So for my Americans, I'd actually prefer to add an anti-tank gun rather than a high explosive. That's largely because I, like with Gorcin, my Americans tend to be quite mobile and taking advantage of that fire and maneuver special rule. For my Russians and my Bulgarians, HE. Bulgaria, I'll talk about in half a second, but definitely for Russia, it's because the Soviets, it's because I have Panzerfaust running around, and generally I will take something like the T-34-85, which has a heavy anti-tank gun on it, and that generally is enough to scare or at least have us do a bit of a engagement on the tank side. When it comes to Bulgaria, they have very, very limited equipment overall in terms of what I can access or special tanks and things like that. They were a supplementary Axis force, more border patrol stuff. They were never really engaged in a huge amount of theatre frontline combat. And so that means that when I actually come to choose what I'm doing, I have to control and mitigate the game in other ways, because I can't do it with big scary weapons. Or if I wanted to do it with a big scary weapon, I have to use my Axis support slot. So that's how I got my Panzer III as regular in that space. But the Panzer IIIN has a light howitzer on it. I pair that light howitzer with a medium howitzer and a medium mortar. So I can actually put out 3 templates a turn, 2 of which are just 2-inch blasts. One of them is a 3-inch blast.
I think that's really cool.
Now, the reason that, and those generally, at least 2 of those will target the same unit every turn. And the reason then to do that is to create the suppression of pins, potentially multiple drop pins. I'm sort of pitching D2s and D3s, which even if I only get the minimum amount, it's still 3 pins on a unit, and they would have been hit by 3 blast markers, which is not a fun place to be. It's hard though, because if I was looking at a German army specifically, you have the Neberwolfer and the Howling Cow. And those
Land matches
priced
for you?
as well.
Land
match.
for US?
No, the Soviet land matches for US.
You can't lend lease one?
I can't lend lease one to the Soviets, but the Soviets don't care because they've got the Katyusha, which I'll get into when we get to tanks. If I was definitely going to take my preference, I would take a multi-launcher. The reality is that for their points, multi-launchers, they are high risk, high reward, but they outstrip the reward sort of ratio of any other unit in the game.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting really excited for Gorcin's army now. There's German army that he will be starting, because I really want to see you just take every swingy thing in the book, like Nebelwerfer, like these units that just...
I must have been thinking really loudly. because I was going to say, I'll take a Nebelwerfer for my HE slot, and then I'll take a Panzerwerfer 42 for my tank slot. And Dan's going to be like, No, you're not allowed to mention.
No.
I don't want that much administrative bookkeeping. You're just like rolling dice that do nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't upgrade. Oh, it didn't hit. Oh, that didn't hit. It's just like you're playing slow. Get out.
We'll have to add a whole other phase for Gorcin shenanigans.
To like quote a very famous book, you have an army and it's like, it was the best of times.
I'm actually channeling Ferdinand Foch. It's like
Yeah.
my left is collapsing, my right is
Yeah.
retreating, my center is gone. Situation excellent. I attack.
I love it.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah,
Look,
Move on.
sometimes I can't
Maltese.
make a decision.
Yeah.
88 man can do both. Why not?
I have wanted an 88 just because of that versatility. I think
Yeah.
it's a fun unit too.
Yeah.
I think an 88 on ambush is one of the most disgusting things because you can't necessarily fire the HE profile from ambush, but even being able to do it with a super heavy like that, no.
So let's just skim through how it's super quick. I think wherever you can, you take a spotter.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you get to the heavier calibers, you require toes to move this stuff around. So I
Yep.
think most
Yeah.
people tend to cap at the medium
Yeah.
and not go further.
And if you do, you take the cheapest toe you can, get it on the board, and then
Well, that's one way to do it. If generally the way I play is I try really hard that if I'm going to take
Judging you.
that if I'm going to take a toe, I will try to take a toe that is a bit more historically accurate. So as much as
That's
technically,
not what you were going to go with.
as much as technically by the rules application,
tractor.
a horse cart can actually carry an 88, and you only need one horse to actually technically do that.
I forgot about the horses.
They're the cheapest tow that is out there out of one of the books, and as much as that's a legal thing, I sort of like I don't think I could bring myself to do it. Not anything against people that do. Like I know that Clive, one of the Monday nights, he actually built a horse train of 8 horses to pull the 88, and I went, he's paid the points for it, but at least he's modelled up something that looks semi decent that is going to pull it. As opposed to, here's my little battle pony from Warhammer 5th edition that's going to pull along.
It does feel quite German in regards to logistics to have a horse pull an 88. Like, yes, here is our supremely engineered weapon.
And clearly,
it's being pulled by a horse because we couldn't find any cars that worked.
Well, no, they didn't have enough cars.
That too.
And clearly, when the horse gets run over, it's just more glue to keep it all together, so it's fine.
There you go.
I think that like a lot of people don't realize that the German army was like the most, by percentage, was like the most horse-drawn army of World War II.
Yeah, people don't know that.
That's hilarious.
And then there's a variety of AA weapons, a lot of autocannons and stuff, but
Weberwind.
I think
just talking about the static ones. I don't see
Quad
many-
flak.
I don't think anyone.
I don't think anyone
37.5
really uses
mil
them,
gun.
to be honest.
I've seen
see them.
I've seen a couple of people, but liked what I think at one point my mate Roy Fenn ran one, and he ran it because he's like, I don't see them, so I wanted to put a quad flak in, and people react a little less poorly to a quad flak artillery piece that's stationary compared to a Weberwind that can move around
That's
things.
true.
I still bombed it with an airstrike, which is
I
hilarious.
think we just don't see them all that often because that slot can be used for things that can go indirect.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and then we'll move on to armored cars. There's quite a few.
Stick with us. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Lot of variety out there. Typically, you see things within the 222 family. So you'll get the 222 itself. Probably one of
It's
the
the
cooler.
221.
It's probably one of the cooler looking cars. So
that's great.
You see it often, but
Gorgeous little thing.
you should just take the 8 rad because it's 5 more points and not open topped.
I honestly thought you were going to say not shit there.
Oh, basic.
With the 234s, you get quite a few variety. You get one with heavy AT, you get another one with a howitzer, and then the famous Puma for 160 points, which I think is just a medium anti-tank gun. From memory.
I seriously need to look at armored cars more because they seem really good. Like having a heavy AT on something that can zip around.
And they've got
seems like a
recce
good
and
idea.
all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
So
The Germans in particular have a very good selection of armored cars.
Don't the Germans have a good selection of really though?
Yeah,
like
that's
that's
true.
I think
Reliable equipment.
Oh,
I think
Okay,
I think Victories was the other one.
Look,
Alright.
I think there's a lot of cool armored cars out there. I don't think you can actually go wrong. You can even take that slot as the machine gun motorcycle for
Yep.
50 something points, which is like the same points as
And
the
it also
MG
makes
squad.
it stupidly difficult to kill because it's now classed as a vehicle.
Yeah. Awesome.
I love that.
I think the one thing that I've seen only a couple of times that I'm actually surprised doesn't come up more is the 224/4,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is the heavy armored
Heavy.
car.
Yeah.
That's open topped, but it has, I think it's a heavy anti-tank gun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's forward facing, but you've got recce.
Yeah.
Like
yeah,
it's a
Good
fantastic.
luck, like,
Yeah, it only clocks in at 180 more points than.
Yeah.
Sorry, 180 points. 20 points more than the Puma.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's a
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
good buy.
Yeah.
And
And surprisingly, that Puma, it tends to, for me, I've found it's just never got enough punch.
yeah,
So
It's not meant to though. That's the thing. Like
Yeah.
the Puma, as much
or
as
armored cars in general.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the Puma from version 1 was god level. It's
Yeah.
not that in version 2 because the main rules changes with recce and stuff. But the Puma was never meant to be the breakthrough vehicle. It was
No,
it,
of
it's
course.
a supporting scout,
It's a reconnaissance
deployment vehicle. That's
It's a
right.
reconnaissance
Yeah.
And so when you use it, it's more about harassment and being hard to keep hold of
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
And it
drawing
does that
and
job
positioning.
so well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing that not captured in bolt action, and fair enough, not a criticism, but the thing is it was using the standard anti-tank gun at the time.
Yes.
And while they didn't
Yeah.
have many of these rounds, the German high explosive anti-tank shaped charge round was phenomenal. It
Yes.
was a fantastic performer. From even a low velocity or a medium velocity 75 mil gun, you could punch through anything you wanted if you had this round. So most vehicles only had a couple of these rounds, if anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you saw something troublesome, it didn't matter. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that make the German anti-tank guns have such a fierce reputation.
Yeah.
So let's move on
anti-tank,
to the
moving
tanks
into-
themselves.
Here we go.
And this is the hardest thing for me. It's that decision: do you even include a tank at all? Because you can go down that infantry route. If you don't include armor, then you don't have to play that anti-tank game. You're negating your opponent's anti-tank weapons
Yeah.
simply by not including them. But they're so cool.
And this is why I will take a Panther to the end of my days,
Oh,
because
mate.
it is so much fun to just lob shells that if they hit, your opponent goes, oh no.
Oh dear.
Well, that didn't go according to plan.
No shortage of great options for Germany. Straight up, Panzer 1, double MG, 70 points. That's a pretty good option. Very cute tank.
And the thing that I've been seeing a lot is the Panzer Luchs.
Yep.
Yes.
Gets mentioned a fair bit.
Yeah,
in the
definitely.
circles.
With light order with recce, one of the few tanks that has recce, so that's something I've included with the 8 rad before and kind of run them together. All last year, P3 was my favorite tank. 155 points, double machine gun, medium gun.
Yep. Yep.
It's very well priced.
Yep.
And
even the other variants like the Panzer
Yeah.
N, for example,
Yeah.
with the light howitzer,
Yeah.
is still a great bargain price.
Yep. P4's fantastic. You get the heavy gun and you get Tiger Fear. And it's 235 points. So, in comparison to all the other nations with their equivalent tanks at the same price point, you're getting that Tiger Fear on top. So it's quite good.
Yeah.
I put the Panther on my list as well. 355 points for Super Heavy. I don't think you can find too much for Super Heavy at that. Maybe VC Firefly, I'm not sure.
Well, I find you have to, and this is why I take it as veteran, because then anyone who wants to try and touch it with like howitzer shots to put pins on, literally can't. The veterans in the tank go, no, that's a howitzer shot, that's not coming in here. And so it just becomes even more fearsome. Also, apparently, I just don't like dice in a bag. So I'm happy to spend the
Tyler's like-
500 points or whatever on a tank.
426.
Yeah.
Tyler's like, what other big unit can I take to reduce my dice count?
I see Panthers as high as you want to go points wise with Germans.
Sure.
Once you get into Tigers and everything else, it's getting a little bit
Oh,
ridiculous.
see, I don't know. Like,
Yeah. Well, King Tiger
Well,
specifically.
no,
Yeah.
even then, like the thing is, right? if you want to put it in your list, as long as you know that you're going to have to work a little bit harder for some of those units because the point curve efficiency drops off a cliff.
Yeah.
As long as
See, it's fine.
as long as you're but as long as you're working within that, right? Then take a Jag Panther, take the Koenigsberg Tiger, like take all of that different stuff. I probably massacred that name. I apologize, but take all those like really big fun toys if that's what you want, because I guarantee you that your opponent's not going to knock them off easy. It's going to be if they one shot it, they've got extremely lucky.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunate for me, the Stug, it's when you compare it to the P4, it's just a piece of crap. I mean, like it's 5 points less. You get one. You don't have the machine gun, and that's it. And then it's forward facing. So
Isn't
why
it
wouldn't
also
you take a
higher-
P4?
Isn't the
It's a
forward
much flatter profile though.
Isn't the forward armor like higher as well?
No.
No.
It's
It's the same armor
as the
value.
same as the P4. It just doesn't have the MG. It's 5 points less, and you don't have a turret,
So
and you don't have Tiger Field.
So if we take with a, you can't quite get the same. Are you talking to Stug 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stug 3. Yeah.
Now, there is an interesting one. I like that
Stu.
model. It looks cool. Stu 42, 190 points, medium howitzer. Why not? It seems like a pretty good option. It's one of the ones I'm considering to actually buy for my next list. I think it's.
I also think that one of the things that people constantly misunderstand about the benefit of forward-facing case-mounted guns is you're completely immune to turret jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of
Completely
people
immune.
forget to roll for Tower Jam, which is why.
Not when we play my games. I will get my points efficiencies. Thank you very
But I
much.
think that's why a lot of people forget about them, because a lot of people forget to roll for Tower Jam. They forget that it's a mechanic.
Yeah.
Now, if you want a baby Stug, you can go for the Hetzer, 210 points.
The Hetzer's actually. I got Jackson onto using a Hetzer, and he is like.
Interesting thing about it is its machine gun is 360 degrees,
Remote
and that
control.
doesn't mean that it's open topped or anything like
Yeah.
that. So you got that option to be attacking infantry from the sides. It
Yep.
has less side armor because it's a Hetzer.
It's
still
way
got a
smaller profile though as well.
It's got a heavy AT, and yet the profile is pretty cool.
And the profile is important just purely for cover considerations
Yeah.
and hiding.
Yeah. Bubble Wind 240, 4 light autos. It's open topped. Haven't tried one, and this is where I'm trying to look for advice. I'm looking for these HE option vehicles.
So, but
and
what sort
I
of
wanna take.
advice are you looking for?
Panzer
the
Werfer
Werewolf?
42.
Yeah.
Multi-launcher.
Yes.
Oh,
and a
look.
vehicle.
Oh yeah,
For sure.
coolest model ever.
Move and fire. That's
Yeah.
that's the killer. That's what I was going to bring up with the Katyusha.
Yeah.
In Nick's, what was the operation with the game we did with Nick? The
Lorraine.
Lorraine. So during the Lorraine game, I versed an anti-air battalion.
Okay,
And
right.
So I was running squads across the open,
Yeah.
and there was 3 of these Whirlwinds.
Oh no.
And scary, yes.
Yeah.
And did they do damage? A little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
But what I find with autocannons is like they're rather limited if you can keep things spaced out, because they have to all the templates have to be touching. And while 4 sounds like a lot, you still need to hit 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it yes and no. Once again, the Wirbelwind in particular, it falls into similar to some of the other high rate of fire damage output weapons, where you use it. The best use is a area denial weapon, right? So it's got a 48-inch range. Each small autocannon fires 2 shots, so it's 8 shots in its anti-tank profile of AT, which is a fairly large number of shots for a penetration value. Or you can flip it over to the HE, and that's where the templates need to come in and link over.
Right.
But 8 of those shots still get fired for those HE templates.
Yeah.
Every single hit puts down a template. Everything under the template takes a hit to a max of 1. But it's still a lot. There's also the pure pinning effect of it.
Yeah,
That's the other part, is like you can guarantee D2 pins on something just by firing HE.
Yeah. So then the next kind of pick I chose was the Kugelblitz. It's 205 points. It's a P4 chassis. It's all enclosed and it has 2 heavy autos. I think there was 5 of these things built. One of them, a wreck found in Berlin. So it is an option.
Oh, well, you can put it in your army. It's just destroyed.
So it is thought that there has been one that has seen combat and was used, on the defense.
It's like the Russians got into it and driving it around, crashed it, and just totaled it and ran away.
That's what the Australians did in Crete.
205 points for an enclosed autocannon vehicle actually sounds pretty cool. There's
it's
not
not bad.
many models out there for this thing. JTFM/Die Waffenhammer have just finished building their one.
Oh, cool.
Tactics has got it on order, so
Awesome.
I'll probably pick it up.
It's pretty cool. I like the idea of it.
It looks a bit weird though, like kind of like a spaceship turret or something at the top.
Well, one of the things like you could do if you wanted to be really fun is you could take the 37mm flak as a heavy automatic cannon, and you can model like a wreck of a Kugelblitz and just have that as your AA gun and your AA slot.
Oh, hey!
Well, that's another cool thing with Germans. You do get the Panzerstrom or whatever it is. It's where you get the Panther turret that's just been taken off and mounted into the ground, and that's your anti-tank.
Wait, what the? Is that what this is?
No, Kugelblitz is what you want.
Jesus.
What did you look up?
Kugel Panzer. Look at this thing.
What have we discovered? All right, and then
Don't Google Kugelpanzer. We'll lose you.
very right at the end, transports. Transports is just I've got a couple of thoughts on it. Most nations have something similar. With Germans, you're either taking an armored transport or a truck. There's a wide variety of what
people
they
wagon,
can do.
don't you?
Yeah. So that it's a decision making on do you want the troops to be a little bit more protected or not.
Yeah.
But for me it's more, am I taking transports or not?
Yes.
And really that has to be for a specific job rather than a whole army like I
Good
was
job. Good job. Learning.
Any thoughts on transports, guys?
For me, the biggest thing is so trucks are cheaper.
Boring.
Yeah.
It's the guy with the Panthers like, get out of the way.
What are you doing on my road?
The biggest thing for me is your half-track style vehicles, so your Hanemags, your M3s, and all that sort of stuff. Their biggest advantage is the fact that they can cross obstacles. Wheeled vehicles cannot do that, but they travel faster.
Yeah.
So you really need to, it takes a little bit of experience to know what you want and how you prefer to play. If you don't mind going a little bit slower, but you're happy to go the most direct path, go for a half track. You'll get more protection, you'll be safer, but you'll get there better. If you are willing to take, if you want to engage quicker and are willing to restrict your approaches to maybe something a little bit more predictable, but you can get there faster, go for a truck. That's ultimately what... The points are secondary for me.
Well, okay, that's interesting because I think the points is a massive thing, because you have the truck, which is 39 points, and then you have like a Hanomag, which is 89. Like that's
2 trucks,
almost three trucks.
And the benefits, you've got more armor. Yeah, you can go over different terrain. I'm not sure.
Important thing you need to remember is that the truck cost doesn't include an MMG, whereas the Hanomag cost does. So if you want a truck with if you want
you
vehicles
have to
with
have
the same,
someone inside the MMG to shoot it.
The crew's able to fire one by default.
You just can't have an enemy unit parked closer than one of yours. Or
it'd be the same for all transports, right?
that's right.
Also armored transports.
Yeah.
Also, the Hanomag stuff is the same capture as well.
Yeah.
So if you want to compare points, I think it's 15 points for an MMG typically on a vehicle. So if you go 39 points plus 15, it's 44 points for a truck, and it's 89 for a Hanomag. So you're paying 45 points to lose 3 inches of movement,
but then cross obstacles.
But cross obstacles and +1 armor.
Except it's still open top, so you're still getting pins.
Yeah, but not anything, not everything can destroy your half track.
Yeah, exactly.
I would probably, like, where I sit on that one is if you're planning on like sauntering across the battlefield, I'd take a half track.
Yeah.
If you're planning on outflanking or
Be
being sneaky, either outflanking strictly as the rule outflank is, or flanking by hiding behind terrain and stuff, take the truck. That would be the simplest way that I'd skin it.
And that makes sense as well because the truck gets more pivots.
Ironically, yes. It shouldn't, but yes. Because track vehicles.
They're just doing donuts. What are you talking about?
Alright, so that's our overview of Armies of Germany. I am no closer to deciding what the heck I'm going to take for my force, but I've definitely got a lot to think about.
If anybody wants to buy me a birthday present, my list is in this episode.
So thanks for checking in with the HMG crew again. Please subscribe to us, follow us on Facebook, add us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, whatever is your favorite podcasting platform. Give us some ratings on there. If you guys are in the Perth area and you want to play some bolt action, challenge any of us on this. We will happily play you.
Please. Call us out.
There's
Yeah, absolutely.
At us. Literally, come at me.
Yeah, Jackson,
We will-
this is me accepting your challenge that you've been asking me for a couple of, I don't know, about a year. I might need to borrow your army. I'm still painting mine, but whatever.
Borrow mine.
We're playing a game.
I love it.
Just to be very, very clear, my wife gets a say in whether I'm available to fight in any sort of a battle that Jacob may have just thrown me under the bus for.
So basically what we're saying is to our listeners is snap to action.
Yeah.
Snap to action.
Oh, we're going to take that out.
I'm definitely going to deafen that.
Yeah, so snap to action. So, subscribe with what's going on. Have a look at